What's going on? Welcome to another Caleb Selves live stream. I am very stoked to have another guest on the channel today. On YouTube, he goes by Big Yumbo, and I got to give him some props before we jump into this too much. As a reseller YouTuber, when you start making content, it gets very hard to consume lots of other people's content. But this is a channel when a new video comes out, I am watching every time just from all the information I've learned over the years watching his videos. So I appreciate you coming on the channel. So Big Yumbo, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more?
Hello, I'm Big Yumbo. My real name is Anthony, but I just go by Big Yumbo. Been selling on eBay for like 5 years, since 2019. I'm doing like 240,000-ish in sales a year currently. Doing a little bit of YouTube, but that's pretty much it about me as far as
That's awesome.
my online personality.
We won't get into your real life personality yet. Maybe later on in the video. We'll just stick to your online persona.
Okay, sounds good.
So this is a question that I've wondered for the longest time. I do follow you on Instagram, and it says that your name is Anthony on there. So I knew that Yumbo was not your real name. For a while, I wasn't sure. It could have been your real name or not your real name. But I think a fun question to open us up would be, how did Big Yumbo, how did that name come about?
Well, I was working at a barbecue restaurant with my girlfriend, Dickie's Barbecue Pit, and, I was like her boss, by the way, shift leader, and we fell in love, but I was, like, coming up with words because it was just a boring job, so I came up with the word "Yumbo," and I, like, even made, like, a little Urban Dictionary post of it. I'm gonna look it up real quick. Yumbo Urban Dictionary. There's some inappropriate ones on there, but my definition, it's an adjective meaning highly pleasant to the senses. This word can also be used to describe things or events that bring us joy or happiness. And then there's some examples of how to use the word. Stealing from your friends is not yumbo. This hot dog is so yumbo. Found $1. Yumbo. That's how it happened. And then I just started calling myself, I was called Big Tone for a while, and then I
Ooh.
changed it to Big Yumbo.
So you went from Big Tone to Big Yumbo. Are you big in stature? Is that why you're big, or was it just like a cool thing to put before your?
No, I'm small in stature.
Okay. So it was kind of, was it like oxymoron kind of thing, or just complete random? I'm Big Tone now, and then I'm Big
It
Yumbo.
is an oxymoron type thing. Hold on one sec. My headphones. Yeah, just 1 second. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
No worries. Well, while he is sorting that out, I have been curious about how the name came about for quite a while. So I'm very intrigued by that story. But I just want to welcome you guys to the chat. If you're here in person, please leave some questions in the comments. Me and Big Tone / Big Yumbo would love to answer your questions and help you guys with your specific business. Once again, I just want to reiterate, I've learned so much from Yumbo's channel. So I am sure that if you have some good questions, that he can give you some great answers that can help your business. And I'm always trying to do the same on my channel. That's why I started the channel in the first place. Is people help me along the way, and I found reselling just to be a really awesome job. And so if I can help, a few people make that a reality, then that's what we're here for. And yeah, can you give, so you said you're doing about $240,000 in sales roughly per year. What does like your maybe like daily or weekly or monthly kind of operation to get to that point look like?
Well,
Whichever one of those is the easiest to describe maybe.
I can only really describe it like day by day. I wake up pretty late. I'm not very responsible. I woke up at 8 this morning and it was like a big deal. So like usually I'm waking up around 10 and it's just whatever work I can get done. And so, I start out with my shipping just because that's when you have to do. And then I've recently figured out that I used to save my photos till like later at night. Now I immediately do the photos And I'll try to set a rule for myself, like I can't leave the house until I've done all my photos. But like sometimes halfway through the photos, I'm like, I gotta go. So then, I bounce out. And then sometimes I get home and I'm too tired, I can't do the listings. Generally, I try to do 30 per day. But like lately, I've just been kind of burnt out and I take some days off. But for the most part, I've been able to make more money every year just because I raise my ASP just doing research. And sometimes I'll be researching until like 3 in the morning, especially on
So you're
Levi's.
not only you're not only listing, like 30-ish items. So let's say just averages somewhere between 20 and 30 if you take the days off and whatever else. So you're not only
Yeah.
doing that on average, but you're also just intrigued with the cool items that you can find and unlocking those like higher dollar items or finding items that you can sell for more money based on keywords and specific things. And that's one of the things that I really loved about your channel is like if I pick up one of those per video, after 10, 12 videos, like, hey, maybe once a month I'm going to find one really cool item that sells for way more than I would have originally thought, or that kind of thing. And research is what it really comes down to. And you mentioned that a lot in your videos. And people really, I think that people kind of lean on the YouTube community to try to find a lot of that research. But when you can actually do the research yourself and learn how to do it, nothing against learning on YouTube. I still do that all the time. It's why I watch your videos and a few other channels. But if you can do the research yourself, then you're not competing with everybody else that watched the video. And even with the market. So it's not just competing to get the item at the thrift store. It's also like, I think when J-Ride posted a video about Wrangler brush poppers, they went from being like $200 down to like $75. And, nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. He's just sharing a keyword. But those kind of market fluctuations can happen.
He blew up that market. That was crazy. As soon as he made a video about that, every single Wrangler shirt on eBay became a brush popper all of a sudden. Like that's why they went down in price, but some of them went way up in price because they already were expensive. And then that was crazy. I've never seen anything like that on one item where like because there's so many Wrangler shirts out there, most people don't even grab them. And then all of a sudden there was like way more on eBay. But it's pretty
Yeah, that
cool.
was crazy.
I'm into those.
I'm going to catch up on the chat a little bit here. I do have to give a shout out to Jen Admission. I was on a live stream with Bo Johnson not long ago, and he was asking me if I was going to have any more guests on the channel. And he said, you should do one with Big Yumbo. And I thought in my head, um, I'm kind of intimidated by Big Yumbo because like sometimes he can like get upset at these random people at the thrift stores. Does he like secretly hate me? And then he made a video about all these people making the same type of content as him, but then it
I
all
wasn't talking
rounded
about
out.
you.
No. And then it all rounded out when uh, I shouted him out in my video and he shouted me out in his video, and there was harmony amongst the resellers. And it was just a cool experience because I really did watch your videos for quite a while. And so I was a little bit hesitant to ask. And so I do have to give a shout out to Jen Admission because I was kind of hesitating and I was like, hey, I think the people would like it. So let's do it for the people. And now we're here and I'm enjoying it. So thanks for coming on.
I think people misunderstood me. I wasn't saying people are copying me because I'm copying like Thrift Alive. That's what I copied. I wasn't saying people are copying me. I was saying like, what's the point of making a video when there's already so many videos that are my videos can be just like everyone else's. I wasn't saying that like people. I don't have like this big head where I think I'm like God of
I was not
this.
accusing you of that.
Okay.
I totally knew what you meant. Like when you log on and see so many of what you're already trying to
Yeah.
do, it's like, is this worth my time to keep pouring into this pool when other people are pouring in? So I wasn't trying to accuse you of anything. I just thought it was funny timing that all those things happened within like 2 days of each other. Bearded
Yeah.
PokeTuber says, Yumbo Heart. I always see you in the comment section on Yumbo's videos,
Uh,
so glad you made it over here. Jen Admission says he has a name. Yeah, it's Anthony.
yeah. I actually deleted it off my Instagram because I just wanted to be Yumbo. But I don't really do any resell stuff on my Instagram. It's just kind of a dead Instagram.
I saw a lot of skate videos. Did you go by Yumbo when you were a skater? Because I feel like that's a cool skate name.
Did I? Yes, I did. Because when I skated in Sacramento, every skate park I'd go to, like if I didn't know people, they'd be like, "Hey, Yumbo," or like Big Yumbo. I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah." So that's when I knew it was a good name. So that's when I made it my. That was first because people would recognize me that I didn't know from like around town there, and then I was like, I'll just transfer it over to YouTube because it's a good name, in my
Yeah, I mean,
opinion.
it sticks. I mean, one thing that always stood out to me, and this was honestly one reason I hesitated making like a YouTube channel for so long, is I looked at the success of Harry Tornado and I was like, this dude accidentally made the best name of all time because it's like unique enough that you can't forget it, but it's not like so obscure you can't place it. And I feel like Yumbo kind of has some of the similarities of that, where it just kind of rolls off the tongue. It's not foreign to say because it rhymes with things that we say in our normal language. And it just, but it's unique enough that if you know that word, it's stuck with you.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be like Anthony Thrifts or like Junk
Caleb
Flipper or like
sells.
sorry, but like because then like if I
It's
get tired of
true.
reselling, if I get kicked off eBay or whatever, I could try to make some other sort of video. And I'm sure it wouldn't do as well for like a while, but I've already got my name set. That's good. I just didn't want to be like, oh, this guy only does this, even though that's all I do. I just didn't want to be locked in.
I felt the exact same way, but I realized it was the only thing holding me back from like posting a video. And I was like, this is a dumb reason to not post a video. So I just went backwards and I did the most basic thing possible. But jealous of the name. Sweet. Bearded PokeTubers wants to know what made you decide to niche into clothing over other categories.
Well, I started out, I was doing literally everything. I was doing shoes. If you watch my earliest videos, they're pretty bad, but like you can see, I'm selling all sorts of weird stuff. And I always thought it like I'd sell women's panties, all kinds of weird stuff because like I hear like, oh my God, vintage panties sell for $40. Whatever sells for good money, I would go get. And I was just kind of like embarrassed of like all these stupid things I was selling for a while. And then Thrift Alive came around and like he was the one for sure who got me into selling clothing because I knew about sell-through rate, but I didn't realize like how powerful it was, like that it's the main thing you need to look at. And then because I always thought clothing sucked because all the clothing I'd ever tried to list was terrible. It was stuff I thought was cool or stuff that was like vintage and it would never sell. But then when I found out about sell-through rate, it was just like total game changer. So then I slowly transferred to just all clothing, and it's I think the best thing, at least for me, because it's everywhere. Um, there's always new brands coming out. People always wear clothing, and they always will. Yeah, so clothing's the best.
Yeah, those are a lot of the reasons why I niche down into clothing as well. I wouldn't say I'm as hardcore and strict about staying clothes only as you might be. But I sold everything starting out and I was doing really well, but in Q4 it was going a little too well and I was spending my entire day shipping random stuff that I had to like make boxes for, and like my storage situation, I had to get an extra 10 by 10 storage unit because I was bursting at the seams, and all those little headaches caused me so much stress. I was like, I don't even know if it's actually worth this additional stress to make this extra money. If I just got way better at one thing, I could do it a lot less stressfully. And so I'm still kind of working my way back up to where I once was. I did really well, but it just was like the mental taxation of juggling all those different things. So now I'm very picky with anything that I pick up that's not clothing. Like I still will pick up like really small electronics if it's something I can test in just a second or something I already have prior knowledge on. And shoes, like I still have all my stuff set up from when I sold shoes, so it's not like additional work to do shoes. And for me, it just like saves me time sourcing. If I can grab, 4 or 5 pairs of shoes per time out sourcing, that's, 4 or 5 less items that I got to find.
I look at the shoes, and I always think they're good because I did shoes 4 years ago or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I'll see some shoes that were good. Like I can't think of a specific one right now. But and then I'll be like, these are $100 shoes for sure. I'm just gonna grab these and sell these. And then I'll be like, okay, I should look them up before I buy them. And then I'll look them up, and now they're like $20 shoes. So the whole shoe game is completely changed. It's I'm so out of the loop, and it happens pretty quick how quickly all the good brands become bad brands. So I mean, I would do some shoes if I knew what I was doing, but I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna buy something stupid that I think is good. And actually, when I started out, because you were talking about the shipping and the storage, how that's terrible, I was like in my earliest videos, you can see this little bedroom I'm in. That it's a 10 by 10 bedroom where I kept all of my inventory, like over 1,000 items. I took my photos in there. I slept in there. It was everything that I did in my entire life was in this tiny bedroom. And that was one of the main reasons that I switched because it was just
I
a
think I
really
remember
terrible
seeing the
life.
bins stacked up to the ceiling. Was
Then
that
I'm this is before the bins. The bins came when I started doing the clothing because I was like, oh my God, I could just do
okay?
bins if I'm doing clothing. And then we moved to the box system, which is the best. But yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for me, changing over from the bins to the boxes, I hesitated for so long. And then literally like the day I switched over, I was like, I didn't even care how much work that was. I already have saved time. I already have saved effort, my back, all those things. Really just the most annoying thing was lifting the boxes. And of course, every time you need something, it's always on the bottom bin. So you're lifting this four boxes bins on, it's like, yeah. So if you're doing clothing, you're still in the bin system. Look up the box system and definitely consider it because two recommendations here for sure. Kenny wants to know how many stores are on your thrift route, and do you have multiple thrift routes?
Yeah, I for Goodwills, I think there's like 15 to 18 of them here, and I hit at least 15. I hit all of them but like two. I hit those ones like every once a month, but they're just really bad. And then we've got like five savers and then like five other random thrift stores. So I'm hitting like at least 25 thrift stores a week, and a lot of them I hit twice or sometimes 3 times a week. 'Cause it's super competitive here. You have to basically go everywhere and be everywhere all of the time, and you have to get really lucky sometimes.
Yeah,
A
sometimes
lot.
it is just about going in at the right time when they're pulling out the new rack or, like before a specific reseller that kind of knows the same types of things as you. Like I know for you, like I've seen Levi's really escalate over the last like year or so in your business. Like if somebody that goes in there really knows Levi's right before you, it's like, well, there goes like half the items that you're going to buy. And so you kind of
There's
just have to be lucky on that timing.
there's one guy that I don't know where he came from. He just popped up like 2 weeks ago, and now I see him all the time. And he'll be always be at the thrift store 5 minutes before me now, and he just clears out the Levi's. And it's like, oh, every time I see this guy, I'm so mad. I'm so mad. Oh, now I had a question for you,
That's a
kind of
rough one.
based on this. Because how many thrift stores do you go to?
So for a while, I was able to do about 80% of my sourcing from one thrift store.
That's crazy.
So do you have Eco Thrift in Vegas or just in Sacramento?
There's no eco thrift here. It's Savers is like the equivalent, sort of.
Okay. So the store that I go to be more similar to like a Eco Thrift if you have one near you, but it's a high volume local thrift store. It is a chain. There are multiple locations. But the model of these places is I don't know the exact model of all of them, but like my store, for example, they take donations, but they also purchase inventory. And because of that, their prices are very high. But because they know that they're not going to be able to sell these items at ridiculous prices, there is a pretty aggressive markdown structure for those items. And so, what my goal kind of is going into a place like that is I'm going to see the best items, I'm going to see lots of really good items, but I have to figure out where I can intersect their markdown structure and me getting a good enough deal, but there still being a lot of stuff there. And so that's kind of the model that I have used to get a lot of items from one store. And I will say that I really was doing amazing in the fall and winter. But the spring and summer is a huge challenge, even at a place like that, because the good items don't sell for as much. And just like by pure volume, like the same brand, a pair of shorts sells for way less than like a jacket. It's just common sense from the brand's perspective. And so you have to find way more items, and there's less good items available. And at these places, I don't know how Eco Thrift did it, but at my store, they literally clear out pretty much the entire store and they stock it with summer and spring items and have like a tiny little section for winter items. So it's like it's all really good winter items, but it's all obviously very high priced, or I'm competing with everybody for just, like one little tiny rack. And so it's really up to me to kind of dig through all that spring and summer stuff. So I've actually had to um, more than triple my time sourcing over the last month. So that's been a huge adjustment for me.
I've
And
had
that
the
kind of brings it
exact
back.
same. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, before you get into that, that kind of brings back to the topic of one of the things I think we could really learn from where Big Yumbo is in his business is how far can you really take eBay as a one man show or a one person operation? And that's kind of like the push and the pull that I've been feeling over the last little while. Like I know that I could do more just as a one man operation, and I think that of the people that I follow and have talked to, I think Big Tone does a good job of maximizing what he can do as just one person, doing about 30 items a day, sourcing, listing, photos, shipping, all of that. Because if you're listing 30 and only selling a few, shipping doesn't really take much time. But if you're really selling as much as you can list, that just takes up more time. But it's really sourcing the 30 items a day that really can be time consuming. And so just throwing that out there as a note, we have lots of questions, and I'm sure we'll get some more in the chat that will relate back to how much can we really do as solo entrepreneurs. But just wanted to throw that back in there. Is what you were
Oh
going to
yeah.
say still relevant?
I think I just wanted to say that I'm having the exact same issue with like the savers. Basically, I was killing it. I was finding so much stuff. I thought I was like a genius 2 months ago, and like life was gonna be super good and easy from here on out. But yeah, as soon as it warmed up a tiny bit, they completely, and it's not just the savers, it's the Goodwills, it's everywhere. Everything is just completely dead and dry. There's nothing. So I'm like really, but the cool thing with those stores is you have to learn how to pay up, and I think that's the biggest skill, like, that I've learned is, like, keep it trying to figure out what margin you need and learning where to pay up, because it translates to sourcing online, to doing retail arbitrage. Because a lot of people when they start out, and I started out, like, if it was more than $2, like, you're getting ripped off, like, you can't buy anything that's more than a couple bucks. But that's been the easiest way for me to increase my profit margin is just spending more money every week. Like, I kind of think about it like because I know I'm not dumb and I'm not just throwing my money away. So I know like, okay, if I spent 5 grand this week, next week's gonna be a pretty good week of sales. Like it's gonna be way better than the week before. And I only promote my stuff at 5%. My margins are super good right now, and I've just been trying to spend more money. Like and then once you've been doing it for a couple of years and you have money saved up that's just not really doing anything, it's easier to just instead of spend more time in the thrift, just spend more money wherever you can because it all will come back to you if you're not buying bad stuff. That's kind of been my strategy is spend money. And it's worked out pretty well, except for the last 2 or 3 weeks, because if you spend all this money last month and then you can't find enough stuff to keep your 30 a day going, you'll eBay just kind of punishes you. And then but when it's good, I'd say spend a bunch of money, but don't buy anything dumb. Back to you.
No, I can really relate to that, especially like you kind of mentioned retail and online arbitrage. Like when I was doing that, like I really knew relatively what I was doing. And so I knew like, hey, I spent $10,000 this month. It's going to be like next month is going to be a really good month. But when you don't have that research and that knowledge as like the background, like when I've made big buys in categories I wasn't as educated in, or That's probably just the best example. It can be kind of hard to realize those profits as quickly, but if you do know what you're doing, the more that you can spend, the more that you can buy, and especially on an individual item basis. Like I've talked about this in my videos, but like the cash flow in my business, because I'm able to sell items quickly, is really good. So I don't have a problem being able to afford the new inventory. So to me, if I spend $10 on an item or $20 on an item, if I make a $20 profit on each of those items, that's the same like level of inventory in my book, as long as they're both selling quickly, because I'm making $20 profit on the item, and it takes me the exact same time to list, to photograph, to ship a $10 item or a $20 item. There's literally no difference to me other than what I'm putting out for it. But if my cash flow is good in my business, it doesn't hurt me to put out that extra $10 if I know I'm going to get $20 back quickly.
I have one more thing to say about that before you get to the next question. A lot of people think like they'll buy something for $1 and then sell it for 10. And they think that's better because it's 10xing your money. They think that's better than, buying something for 20 and selling it for 50 because you're barely doubling your money after fees. But it's far less work. And you only have so much time in the day. It's so much less work to just spend more money if you have it. And that's like the powerful thing for me that I learned, where it's scary and it's way riskier. It's totally riskier because you could just have your eBay account shut down any day, and then you're sitting on so much money of inventory you can't get rid of. But it's way easier. It's way less work to just spend more money. Even though it's not 10xing, you got to buy and sell so many more items to 10x your money if everything is 1 into 10 rather than 20 into 50. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I agree 100%. And that's a way better way of saying exactly what I was trying to say. So good job. Jen Emission says, how do you stay motivated when sales are down? Do you have a good response on that?
Usually my sales aren't down. They're kind of down right now. And how I get motivated is I just get really obsessed with something else to distract me. Like right now, I'm super obsessed with Levi's and vintage military. So I just dig in and try to learn as much about that as possible. I've been buying stuff online as like investments and collection pieces or whatever, but also just so I can hold them. Like, for example, I showed you these the other day on Instagram. These are, I kind of wanted to talk about this online arbitrage right
Can I
here.
get you
because,
full screen? Is that
sure. These are a pair of 60s Big E selvage Levi's that I purchased. Unfortunately, I got a pair that has the back pocket replaced with a Wrangler pocket. But how I knew for sure these were selvage Big E 60s Levi's was because the person that sold them, and you got to go deep to like figure this stuff out. The person that sold them had listed 3 other pairs of the exact same size, same wash, same everything, selvage Levi's, but they all had the back pockets still on them and they were all Big E. And they listed them in the wrong category on eBay. So they sold like 3 or 4 pairs of $1,000 jeans. They only got $200 for them because they accidentally listed them in the vintage clothing category instead of the jeans category. And oh my, I was thinking about it for like 2 or 3 days because I was searching in the jeans category, and eBay on your phone will only show you one category at a time. So I was doing the shopping on my phone on Sunday, and then I go and look in this person's store, and I see at the exact same time that I won that auction, there was these $1,000 jeans that sold for $200. So like, if you really get in there and like really go deep on one thing, you can find crazy deals where like, if I would have got those other pairs of jeans, I would have made thousands of dollars and it would have been sick. So that's why I just am really trying to learn, just go. And I have a personality trait where I get super obsessed with things and then I get really good at them and then I move on to another thing. So like master of none, jack of all trades, master of none type of thing. But because I have to make money, I continually stay pretty good at eBay because if I stop doing it, I will be homeless. But yeah, so I just get obsessed. And if you can get obsessed with something, I think it doesn't have to be Levi's. Not everybody's interested in that. but I think it's just helpful to stay motivated, to actually like what you're selling.
I think that's a really good example because I've heard like tech talking about people that will do that for like Polo Ralph Lauren items or other nuanced polo lines. Like the people that really know that stuff, like it could be just one little difference on the pony logo could be the difference between a $30 shirt and a $300 shirt. And the people that know that have all those searches saved and they're browsing those things all the time, and it's going to be bought within seconds. But that's because the knowledge is so deep. So you're doing that with Levi's and vintage military apparel. And so that what that's doing is that's just unlocking lots of more profitable items and even higher dollar flips. Like if you would have gotten those for 200, like if you would see Levi's for 200 at the thrift, we'd all like pass out from seeing $200 jeans. But if you saw those and legitimately knew what they were for $200, you wouldn't have thought twice about buying them.
Right.
And
I
so
would have
that
been
kind of
excited.
goes back to the exactly that kind of goes back to the paying up when necessary. Like at the thrift store I go to, I come across that often. Like if I go in there and see a Carhartt jacket, like if there's $100 on it, I'm not going to be shocked. Like that's pretty common price for them. One time I went in there and I saw like a beautiful Filson bomber jacket, and they had $250 on it. And unfortunately, like at that price, I'm not making money, so I'm not. That's not a good example, but there are little micro examples of that at every thrift store, even when it's paying 15 for something that sells for 50, even though every other item in that category might be normally $5 at that thrift store. Circling back to the original question of how you're saying motivated, I think that's a great way is finding something that is exciting and interesting you within your own business or within reselling, or maybe even sometimes outside of reselling, just to kind of keep your spirits high and keep you distracted from just like sales stink. This is horrible. For me, like, my family is inside that door right there, and they're depending on me to sell stuff online to put food on the table. So that's my motivation. Like when my sales are down, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do to change my sales from being down? Because eBay is not out to get me. I make eBay thousands of dollars every year. So they're relatively for me. So what am I doing where I'm not making as much as I want to or could or should on eBay? And for me, that comes down to sourcing better items, listing consistently, which um, since I've listed consistently, I don't know if I've really had a time where my sales were down. For me, like we mentioned earlier, the seasons changing does have a different just in the average sales price of my average item. But I'm still selling the same amount of items I was a couple months ago. It's just for maybe $5 to $10 less on average. All right, let's get to the
Yes.
next question here. We were on that one for a while, but staying motivated is super important. Michael says, favorite part of reselling being self-employed, as well as latest struggle you each have with reselling. Oh, and it sounds like that is Michael from K&M Resale. He just He just popped on the
Favorite
other
part.
channel.
Favorite part is if I'm in a bad mood, or if I just don't feel like doing something, or talking to people. Um, I don't have to do it. I can do whatever I want. Really, I have to work every day, but I can kind of tailor that work to whatever I feel like doing. And me being just kind of a moody weirdo, it's really nice. But actually, I've been kind of missing like the camaraderie of like the workplace and that type of thing. So that's why I've been trying to like talk to more people in the thrift. I've always been like kind of like almost against it, but like it's easy when people are like Yumbo and they like recognize you or whatever. So it kind of forces you. You're like, oh, and you become friends with the person. And then going to the flea market and like that's something I just recently started doing here. That's kind of fun because you're outside. You're not under like these fluorescent lights. Because basically, if you're a reseller, you basically just work at Goodwill. Like you're basically a Goodwill employee, and you have it's like the same struggles. Like you guys don't. It seems like there's like it's kind of a contentious relationship between the employees and the resellers sometimes, but we're all just working together. It's like the same thing. And I used to work at Goodwill, and that's a terrible, terrible job. But What was the question? Favorite part of reselling? Yeah, just doing whatever I want.
And then what was your largest struggle in your reselling business? You can think about that. I'll say my favorite part of reselling being self-employed. For me, um, I think it kind of is similar to what you're saying, but like I still have to work every day because I got to put food on the table. But being able to pick and choose when I work, like, okay, maybe I'm going to work late tonight, but tomorrow I'm going to take some time off because something important is going on. Or my daughter's birthday was on Wednesday. And so at 4 o'clock, I was like, hey, I'm going to be trying to be done by 4 so that I can spend the evening with, her and my wife. And, because I was able to just decide like, okay, I'm just going to be done at 4. Normally I work until 5, but I had an extra hour with my family because I wanted to and I can. And those little things are the best part. I think also just entering into the entrepreneurship self-employed world and not being reliant on another job. For me, there was always anxiety that came with another job. There's always some sort of pressure from above, and sometimes it's pressure that you put on yourself. They don't even care. But when you're a self-conscious person of what your output is based on what you're getting paid, like I was just putting the pressure on myself, but the amount of pressure I was putting on myself was just like very difficult for me to manage. And now knowing that whatever pressure I put on myself is actually warranted because I can actually go out and make a difference. When you're working a job, you're just going to work your job and it's just going to be whatever it is. And you're going to get paid whatever you get paid. But for me, I actually am motivated to go out and work harder, work better, work more efficient, work smarter, put that extra time in, put the extra effort in, because I'm the one that's getting rewarded for it, me and my family, not just some random person I don't even know at a big company or something like that. And so that would be my second thing, is just the extra value that you get. And it makes it so much easier to work harder when it's for yourself.
Where did you work before this, if you don't mind me asking? Or you could be vague about it. What kind of work were
Um,
you doing?
Directly before this, I was working two part-time jobs. One was as a personal stylist for the company Stitch Fix, and then
Oh,
one was an IT job for basically a multi-site healthcare practice.
oh, fancy. I didn't know you were a stylist. That's pretty cool.
I know. That's why I'm dressing so hip like the youngsters these days.
My girlfriend, when I said, this is the guy I'm gonna do like an interview with, and she said, he looks like you. So congratulations.
Yes.
That's why I got the ponytail for you.
Thank you. Our ponytails are looking yumbo.
Yes, correct.
I'll say my largest struggle. I think I kind of already mentioned it, but I was getting really burnt out when I was spending entire work days just shipping. Q4 of not last year, but the year before, I had an amazing Q4. I did over $100,000 in sales in Q4. It was really fun to see those numbers climb. Of course, when you're shipping crazy stuff like that, a lot of your profits are eaten up by the shipping costs. But also just the time. I would wake up on my shipping days, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I would ship until the post office and UPS closed every Monday, Wednesday, Friday for like 2 months. And I just got a little burnout, just
Yeah.
not feeling like I was doing anything productive other than just manual labor of like breaking down boxes basically. So that was my worst worst struggle reselling. Rhiannon says, yay, this is great. Y'all are both awesome and help the community so much. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Carolyn says, hands down, most entertaining reseller on YouTube. I'm going to guess they're talking about you.
Talking about you, not me.
Pee Wee's Playhouse says, Yumbo, just wanted to say, I love the sandals.
I think because I had a couple thumbnails where it was just my feet in sandals. That's my
There you go.
strategy.
Wow, I'm really behind on these comments. These were like 30 minutes ago.
Sorry.
A lot of these we already answered. Jen and Mission wants to know your best skate trick.
Um, I skate like really small quarter pipes. And I haven't skated in like 2 years now since I moved here because all my skate friends are back in Sacramento. I don't have any tricks that are too impressive. I mean, they actually are kind of impressive when you go to the little skate parks and everyone's like, "Oh, I like doing front blunts." That's what it's called. And I could do them on bigger quarter pipes, and people are like, "How do you do that?" Front side blunts. That's probably my best, coolest trick. Or maybe front side feebles.
I'll take your word for it because I don't know anything about skating. So if I'm staying upright on the board, that's a win. Pensacola Picking and Flipping says, enjoy your videos, my guy. Emmeline says, Yumbo, your videos are amazing. Everybody just spam in the comments. Yumbo is amazing. Yumbo is amazing.
I don't know what's so amazing about them. I'll take it though.
Somebody said possessed dolls. I'm not sure
Oh
what that's
yeah.
referring to.
When I first started reselling, I was because I was an English literature major in college, so I would like, and I heard you could sell these haunted dolls on eBay for good money, but you had to like write a little story with them. So I would buy these, just those creepy dolls you see at like estate sales or thrifts or
Hmm.
whatever, those old ones, and I would get them, and you could buy any doll and sell it for $40. Like you just pop it up, you write a very detailed story, like you'd say like, and I would make up things like, I woke up last night and the doll was standing at the foot of my bed, and my daughter came into the room screaming. I would just make up all kinds of crazy details, and these people would believe anything you said. But the problem with it was, and I don't know if it's if they actually believed it, or if there was like kind of like a role playing game they're doing, because nobody could be this crazy. And then I started to feel bad about it because I threw them up as like a joke, and then people were buying them. But then there would be people messaging me for weeks. This one lady was like, I haven't had any activity yet, but I'll keep trying. And she'll be like,
Oh my
okay,
goodness.
you can, if you don't
That's
see
a
anything, you
slippery
can.
slope.
I know. So I got out of that, but it was kind of fun, but it was just very labor intensive.
Was that your intro to eBay? Was that like the first thing you sold on eBay?
No, that was just something I experimented with.
What was the very first thing you sold on eBay? And did you like go out with efforts of being a reseller when you first started selling on eBay, or was it just kind of a random selling things from around the house, or what's that kind of thing?
First thing I sold online was I started on Amazon. My little brother was teaching me how to go to the store and just scan barcodes. So we go to Winco, the grocery store, and we just scan all the sauces. And he found like this hole in the market for sauce on Amazon. He was actually, I don't know if he does it as much anymore, but he's pretty good at like online selling and stuff. And he's like 4 years younger than me, and he got me into it. But like he had this Hawaiian sauce at the time where like he was the only one who had it online. You just go to the grocery store, buy it, and then sell it for double on Amazon. And I thought that was pretty cool. So then I went out, tried doing that. I'd go to Walmart, I'd sell band-aids, condoms, whatever was in the clearance section, I would pop it onto Amazon. And then I was like, well, I have this used stuff in my closet. I could try eBay. So then I took, it was like an Eddie Bauer flannel or something, would have been like my first. And it was just I hung it on my door with bad lighting and just took 2 pictures of it. And then I started watching YouTube resellers, and then it went from there.
Then you went down the rabbit hole
Yeah.
from there. Rhiannon says, is Yumbo going to do a follow up of his morning routine with a nighttime routine?
No, probably not. I don't have a routine for nighttime.
Well, it sounds like your routine right now is researching Levi's and vintage militaria. So
Yeah, that's
that
part of it.
actually would be relevant to your YouTube channel.
Yeah, I just with that kind of stuff, I only want to talk about it a little bit, not too much, because it just takes one or two other people, in my area to completely ruin it for me. It's the thing is it's so labor intensive to learn about Levi's and the military stuff because of all of it. That's why I kind of like those two things, because a pair of Levi's from the 60s looks exactly the same to the untrained eye as a pair from like 5 years ago. So that's what's cool about it. Same with the military stuff. They still make reproductions of all the same stuff that they had in the 60s. And the 60s is my main area where I just like 60s stuff. So, and I like history. I also, when I go to bed, part of my routine is I just put on there's lots of good videos on YouTube where it's just like World War II people just talking. and I just drift off listening to pretty dark stuff, but it helps me sleep for some reason.
That kind of makes sense. I mean, if you were an English literature major, just like the language from that time, you know, people talking about history, those kind of intersect with,
Yeah.
you know, all that. So that makes sense. Jen and Mission says, I agree. Finding the right box gets annoying. Yep, it's rough. Steel Thunder, the boys. What's up? Heather says, I mainly sell women's clothing on Poshmark, but absolutely love your videos. Yumbo, thanks for the entertainment.
You're welcome.
We got lots more Yumbo love. Razor says, I found a pair of Ariat boots yesterday for $7, sold them on eBay for $135. Killer. Would you pick up, so you're at the thrift store, you see Ariat boots for $7. Like, are you picking them up or passing on at this
I look them up. And then it says they sell for 35 or whatever. I've sold Ariat boots for over $100 before, back when I did shoes, and they were good. I found found a $5 a piece. I found like 5 pairs, and they all had like American flags and good men's sizes, and I sold all those for a lot of money. But now when I look them up, maybe I'm finding the wrong styles or whatever, but every time I'm looking them up, I'm like, oh, they're crap. I would sell shoes. It's easy. I mean, the way I would do it now is I just pop it on my kitchen counter. It had to be in absolutely perfect condition, like pretty much brand new, and it had to be over 100% sell-through rate, like sells for over $100. That's the only way I would do shoes now. And I look for those. I just don't really know what I'm looking for, and I'm not that interested to learn. Sometimes I look them up though.
Yep, I'm pretty much in the same boat. Like, if I have to do any more cleaning than just like 30 seconds of just like, if it's just like one little wipe or something, that's it. Like, I picked up these Rothy's Thursday on my thrift trip, and they're like basic. Look at the bottoms. I mean, there's nothing on there. It's like basically new condition. So all I'm gonna do is just scribble over the Sharpie with my own Sharpie, and then just take pictures. So
I wouldn't
zero
even do that.
extra work.
I wouldn't even, if I found a pair, I would do nothing. That's the only way I would sell it. I used to have different colors of shoe polish. I used to have a toothbrush. I used to have a whole set, and I'd set up in my little 10 by 10 room, and I'd have a pile of 50 shoes, and I'd be scrubbing them. And it was like, what am I doing? It was just insane.
I had that
That's
stage,
like,
and that was when I pretty much stopped focusing on shoes, because I did like, there were like 3 weeks in a row I had like a shoe cleaning day, and it was like I just cleaned shoes
yeah.
literally all day, and I was like, this is horrible. I'm done. Let's get some more of these questions here. Tips for telling if an item is men's or women's. I'll take jeans. If you go to jeans and put your hand in the front pocket, if it's short, that's women's. If it's deep, then it's men's. Do you want to talk about like button shirts?
The rise on jeans is also a good way to tell. Like on a button fly jean, there's usually an extra button on men's. The women's will be like 3 buttons, and the men's will have more for jeans. What was the second part of the question?
I just said, do you want to talk about button shirts?
Oh yeah. So this is a men's shirt, I believe, and the buttons are on my right hand side. It's going to be the opposite with most women's shirts, except for with the what is the name of the
Frank
company?
and Eileen.
Yeah, Frank and Eileen, and yeah, you guys talked about that on your thing, but there's I think Flax as well. Have you heard of Flax?
I've heard of it, but I've never found it. So
they make stuff out of linen. I think some of the women's shirts are like oversized, like I think it's called like a boyfriend fit or whatever. And then on jeans, back to jeans. You know, I love jeans. It'll just usually there won't be an inseam size for the women's, and it'll be more vanity sizing. So like, if you had a pair of Levi's and it just says 30. Like I just schooled this lady because she sent me a message and she was like, "These are men's jeans." And I was like, no, they're women's jeans. And I explained to her why they were women's jeans. But you just, as you progress, you'll learn these things. You can't just like hear someone say it.
I was just going to say also, like, if the item has a style code, you can just punch the style code into Google.
Yeah.
And then another thing with like shirts, like if you just look at like the item when it's laying on your photo table, if it kind of has that, where's my camera? Hourglass shape, that's most likely going to be women's, because that would not like really sit well on any man's body from my
Yeah.
perspective. Like I just had a Patagonia Better sweater, and I had a women's one, and it just very clearly curved out at the bottom. And then I had a men's one, and I was just curious, like, do I need to keep looking up these style codes? I put it down, and it was straight down. And so that's probably relatively universal. Some athletic wear, the men's stuff will kind of taper in a little bit. And maybe some dress shirts, but the dress shirts, you have the buttons, and the athletic wear, it's usually pretty obvious, even just based on like color and the size compared to the tag size. Like if you see a medium and it's like 24 inches long from shoulder to hem, it's like probably going to be women's, because most men's shirts are more like 28 ish, 29 ish, even for a medium, just a little bit longer. So those are a couple things.
I agree.
Wendy, thanks for coming back. You've been in a lot of the live streams. Appreciate you being in here. She says, I've been increasing listings to beat summer slowdown. Will I get punished in the fall when I scale back?
Well, why would you scale back in the fall? That's the best time to do it. I think it would all even out because you've got extra listings going up during the summer when it's slow, and then in the fall, some of those. If you just do a lot of work every day, everything's going to be pretty flat. I wouldn't worry too much about what's going to happen, 10 months from now. Just try to work as hard as you can every day. And a lot of people worry about a lot of things, and you really don't need to worry about anything. If you're working as hard as you can, it's going to be fine, in my opinion.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. Like if you scale down in listings, like it's not going to be like the same day you scale down in listings, your traffic's going to lower. eBay is just going to gradually bring you down to where you are like averaging out at. And so in eBay, we're basically playing a game of averages with all these different things. We're averaging how many listings we're doing, the prices of our items, like how we accept offers, how we send offers. All these things are averages that eBay is putting into their algorithm and sending the buyers that are most likely to send offers you will accept to you. And there's so much nuance to the eBay algorithm. So I wouldn't say like, I think the listings per day thing is so important because it has something that keeps us accountable as resellers. It does factor into eBay, but it's more important that it's something you can hold yourself accountable to. If you go into every day with no listing goal, you probably would do half to a fourth to a half of the listings you did if you had a listing goal. In January, I took most of the month off and I did 5 listings per day for all of January, which basically was like me doing listings for one day for the whole week. And it took until like the 3rd week of the month for my sales to really feel like 1/4 of what I was listing. That being said, when I started listing 18 that 4th week, it wasn't like I was back to doing 18 to 20 sales a day every single day immediately. It kind of crept back up. And so that just kind of goes to show it's more about the averages and the overall work that you're putting in, with other factors, sell-through rate and all that good stuff. But I would say if you have the capacity to scale up and then ride that as long as you can. And if you need to scale back for whatever reason, you have to scale back. And that's just, once you do that, you'll have to work within the traffic and the sales you're getting. But the nice thing is when fall comes, the ASP for your typical item is going to go up with sweaters and jackets and outdoor stuff. And so that probably can even you out either way. Pop Project says, what were your majors in college? So you said English literature?
English literature, yeah.
Did you
It's like
graduate
romantic
college?
poetry. Yeah, I did. I got good grades
Cool.
in college.
Nice.
Lauda cum laude or whatever it's called.
I originally went to school for music, and then I ended up graduating with basically a computer security degree. But at my college, it had some random name that nobody would recognize. So,
Oh, you're a musician? What do you play?
yeah, I'm rusty now. Mostly guitar would be probably my main instrument.
Yeah.
So we'll have
I'm
to get the
rusty too.
band. We'll have to assemble a band.
Well,
Saw
there's
you playing
always
guitar in one of your
there's
videos.
always a ton of guitar players, but there's never any drummers or bass players. Everyone plays the guitar, so it's like you like get together with a guy, you're like just both playing the guitar. It's
Yeah, my best friend from I think we met in like middle school and still is my best friend. He has been my drummer in most of my bands like, over the years, so it was a nice little duo. Steel Thunder says, "Have you guys noticed trends in sourcing different areas or different thrift store chains?" Yeah, we were kind of mentioning that earlier. My store pretty much reorganizes the entire store for the different seasons. So they kind of do like a spring summer setup, and then they do like a fall winter setup. So that's going to change the trends because they're going to price the summer stuff higher, and there's going to be way more of it, and there's not going to be much, many winter items. And let's see, is that answering the question?
I
Yeah,
think he
with the
means
different thrift
like
store change.
I think he means like areas like if you go to the rich neighborhood, you go to the hood, or you go to the
Oh,
country.
yeah.
That's how I'm reading it. I notice the difference, but it's like pretty marginal because all these stores share the inventory. I'll even see like a very specific item at a Savers that it'll have like a monogram on it, and I'll see the same exact monogram on an item at Salvation Army. So like they're buying, they're all getting their stuff from the same spot in this whole city. I don't know how exactly that's working because there's no way that this Savers on one side of the city will have the same guy's thing on his shirt. I don't know how it's working, but it's all in a city area. It seems to be pretty spread out evenly. And there's good opportunities. Like if you know in the more expensive neighborhood, everyone's going to know Viore and Lululemon. But if you go to more of like the poorer area, you can kind of like, it sounds bad to like exploit the poor people, but they don't know as many of the brands. They're just not into it. They like the Nikes. They love Nike, but they're missing all the Lululemon. So you got to hit, gotta have a nice even spread, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. I have seen the same thing in my thrift stores too. Like I've literally seen like an item that there's no way there would be two of these donated to different locations, whether it's like a company logo on it or it's literally the same exact brand, style, and size, new with tags at two different locations. It's like, okay, that is not a coincidence. And so geographically really is probably the biggest difference, just for like entire regions. So I find a lot of like the same stuff in my region. Like it's kind of workwear is a little more popular here. There's not like tons of money in this area. So I would say like designer is pretty much unheard of here. Um, and that's just based on my region. And then also like all of the Goodwills that are near me are part of a very big region that do go to like bigger cities. And so pretty much like if you know of like $100 item off the top of your head that like everybody would know is good, it's being sold online. So the $100 items that I find are things that you would only know if you were a true like expert or researching in like a certain category, because like even Patagonia all goes online, all Carhartt goes online. Like I'm just not going to find those at my Goodwills, and I just know that's how it is.
I was at Savers yesterday, or maybe the day before yesterday, and there was like a 70-year-old woman and her like 50-year-old daughter or whatever, and they go into the men's jeans section, and then she like pulls out her cell phone and she goes, "Scan for Jenkos." And it was like this old lady. They weren't even, they had like heard somewhere that Jinkos were worth a lot of money. And I was like, oh my God, I'm scanning for Jinkos. It was so weird. Like they didn't look like resellers. They looked like they were just excited. They heard about this thing. So like, I don't know. I just was thinking about that.
Let's try to catch up here. I sorry, I got us really behind chit
Yeah,
chatting,
me
but
too.
I'm
Sorry,
enjoying it. So
I'm a yapper.
Chemo says he always stays real. The people love Yumbo. I feel
Thank
that.
you.
CH Nettles says saw a pair of modern Levi's in the thrift, size 34-32, no model number on the back tab. Looking at the care tag, didn't see a model number there either. Any suggestions where the model number would be? Do you have any thoughts on that? You're the
On
Levi's
the
guy.
on the inside tag. Is there an inside tag? It should be on there. So, oh, if it's modern Levi's, sometimes if you flip to like one of the back pages of the little booklet, you can kind of decipher. It's going to start with 5. Just look for a number that starts with 5. That's a 3-digit number that's kind of separated from everything else. And it'll probably be the style. They can be pretty confusing on the modern ones, though.
Yeah, the modern ones, they have so much information on that back little there's so many different numbers, and a lot of them I don't think are relevant to anything. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say look for the 5 3-digit number starting with 5 and see if you can pull from there. If it is oh, you said it's 34, 32, so it wouldn't be women's. I was gonna say if it's women's, I know that they have some, like, really random styles, that they've came out with over the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years.
I think there's a code. I think it's called the PC9 code on modern Levi's stuff. I believe it's PC9. Just Google PC9 Levi's. There should be like a thing that's like PC9 colon blah 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 blah. That I think for modern Levi's you can look that up, and that might help you. Because there's different for the modern stuff. Like it's not just like 501s. They'll have like a 501 slim stretch taper or whatever. So it's like super confusing. So if you can find that number, I never really looked that up. If I know it's a 501 or a 505 or whatever from the tag.
Yeah, if it doesn't seem like to be overly valuable, another thing that you can do is just when it's laying flat on your photo table, like if you do enough jeans, you're going to be able to tell if like the seat area is wider, that's going to be relaxed. Then from that hip point going down, if it's coming in, it's tapered. If it's straight down, it's straight. If you got any flare, I'd throw boot cut in the title. And I would just describe it because if it's not anywhere on the jeans, most likely nobody's searching for that anyway, or they're not going to see that as like a valuable aspect to purchasing. So sometimes like I'm a huge like style code person. I will always try to find the style because it just helps sell through rate so much. But in some cases, if you're spending too much time trying to figure it out, I just try to describe it just plainly and just get through the listing and on to the next one. Because, you know, a pair of modern Levi's, unless it is like a something special, something fancy, it's probably about a $20 item. So just list it and move on. Solomon says, I notice a lot of resellers passingly say they take photos on a non-white background, but I thought standard was the white background. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, if you take photos on a white background, it's your colors just get messed up. Like if you take pictures of a if you're using a super fancy camera, maybe it would be good. But white's also like reflective, so your lights kind of shine off it, and it messes up your camera. So like, if you try to take pictures of a black item on a white background, it's just gonna look completely gray and washed out. Where like with the gray background, if you just kind of tap on the gray, it just kind of balances everything out. But if you try that with a white and you tap on the black all of a sudden it's becomes super dark black. Like it's too white is just too much for iPhone cameras to handle to like accurately
Do you
get.
remember when there was the dress that was like either blue or black or like white or gold? You know what
Yeah,
I'm talking
it's
about?
like that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's basically what's happening in your camera when you're taking photos on the white because it's getting too much information to process the color. One thing that I've done to combat that, and I do use a gray background right there, so I don't have it as bad. But even still, like when you zoom in on an item, and it doesn't have that gray to balance the white balance or the color. If you're into cameras, you know what I'm talking about. If it doesn't have the gray to do that, it can still get really wonky and really discolored. So I actually have an app on my phone called ProCam, and I use that on my iPhone. And then that basically gives you the features. If you have an Android, I think you can just do it built in, but you can actually lock the white balance and lock certain features of the camera to a specific setting. And so that's what I've done to kind of save that hassle of like trying to make sure the color is right because the color is always the same on every single photo. It does cost money. It's like $10. And for me, it was well spent because I've saved so many hours over the last 2 years using it of trying to get the color to look right. One thing I will say about the white background is the white background is actually Google's preference, not eBay's preference. But eBay used to spend tons of money promoting their items on Google. So when you type in use Levi's jeans, eBay is going to put their thing up right to that first little thing. Here, I'll mirror it so it's where you guys would actually see it. When you search into Google, that first little box there. Okay. Well, in eBay's earning reports to their investors, they've openly said we weren't getting enough traffic from Google, so we're not going to spend money on uh, Google search engine optimization and blah 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 and this and that. So really, that white background was something that Google was looking for, so that it looked professional next to, buying from the Hoka website. They want that nice crisp white background that's the industry standard for product photography. So now that we're not really being promoted on Google as much from eBay, it's even less important that you have a white background. um, that was kind of the main reason why, is like you were competing against these professional product photos, and when Google was throwing up your thing there, they didn't want yours to look totally garbage next to this professional photo. But now that eBay is not promoting it, it's not really as critical, um, as well as those other things we mentioned. So I wasn't doing it before, but even now I'd say there's really no point, unless you just like the look and you can facilitate it easily.
I'd like to say that Instagram or on eBay advertises on Instagram a lot, and I think like if you can make it look good on Instagram, because like I see a lot of my own items advertised to me on Instagram. I know it's because of cookies or whatever. It's not because my item is so good, but like some of them, it'll show some, I don't know, some older lady takes it on like a white background. It's like, and you swipe because it pops up on your Instagram, and then you'll see like these vintage kids. They take some really cool pictures on like gravel, and that stuff really it makes it look more valuable. So I don't think the whole rule with even a plain background is that important. There's one guy on eBay that sells all his jeans on like fake grass, and for jeans, whatever reason, like that bright green turf like makes the blue of the jeans pop. So I don't think it's that important.
Yeah, it's actually nice when you see the contrast. And so I do agree when I see those like green turf ones. And same with like vintage tees, like if they have like a white vintage tee or a black vintage tee, it does kind of pop off with that green
Yeah.
background. Resale Brothers is in the chat, says Yumbo is the real goat. Love the live content, Caleb. Thanks so much for saying that. And I saw that the super, I'm not a YouTuber yet. The super whatever for $2 came in. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for the support. And that's a really great channel. I will turn this into an advertising expense for your business. So tell your CPA that you can write off that $2. Go follow Resale Brothers on YouTube. They are killing it at a huge scale. So I'm really impressed by them. And little, I don't know, backstage access. I've been in the talks with them to bring them on live, onto the channel live as well. So looking forward to that in the future. So yeah, we'll get together. Thanks for the super whatever it is. Gabriel, looks like this is for you, Yumbo. You're bummed that 527 price went down after you talked about it. I get why you want to keep the research for yourself. I just found a very common bolo. I can DM you in exchange.
Well, I got people that give me bolos. If you want to shoot me a bolo, I'll shoot you a bolo back. I do that with people.
Sharing is caring. Look for that. It may have well have been Greek.
What?
I think that's back to the Levi's.
Oh, they do stuff in Europe. I actually have a European pair right here. The European pairs can look super fake. This is a like an LVC reproduction. I'm so obsessed with Levi's. I keep them around me right now. Um, like the tag will look super fake, and like usually they'll have the number stamped on the back of the button. You can barely see it on these, but these are like nice selvage Levi's. So the European ones can be tricky, but a lot of the European ones go for really good money. So if you find one that's made in like Turkey, Hungary, Poland, those ones can be good. Especially a lot of them are like they'll put more detail into them, and they'll have like weird kind of European like pockets and stuff like that. So I wouldn't write off all of Europe, but sometimes they can look fake, and I don't know, they could be fake. That's all I'll say about that.
Wendy says, yes, PC Levi's code. You can Google that and it will come up. Donna says, secret brands.
Secret
Do you remember what
brands.
that's talking about?
I don't know. She's saying, "Oh, do you keep secret brands?" I really don't keep secret brands. Like hide because I have like a really big mouth and I can't stop myself from talking once I start talking because I just get excited about things. But I have secret things that I do. I don't have like ways to get stuff, that kind of thing. Like I feel like a lot of people, reseller YouTubers, they don't share like about online arbitrage as much, retail arbitrage, because that stuff it can take one other person to completely ruin it for you. But the thrifts are pretty level playing field. So like I can tell you a bunch of bolos, you're not going to find them today. I've got a couple months before everyone starts finding them, and then I've already found 3 new brands. But there's no secrets. I'll
Yep.
tell you about pretty much everything.
Yeah, and that is really why like the beauty of the thrifting community, like I guess when there's like a very common thing like the brush poppers, it can hurt the market on eBay. And so like same with the 527s, that market has been hurt on eBay. But as far as like finding items, like, we're not going to find vintage selvage Levi's in the thrift store other than maybe once in our lifetime. So it's okay to talk about something that's that rare. I found a brand the other day, 1620 workwear, I think it was. It's a Huckberry brand. The pants had over 500% sell through rate, some for over $100 selling used. And I came on here and shared it because I've only found it once, and I've been, if I would have seen that a year ago, I would have looked it up because it felt so high quality, and the tag was very like inconspicuous, which is another thing that I'm looking for. Like if I see something where they're almost like hiding the branding, like I would have looked that up a year ago, but I haven't found it. And so you have to actually find the bolos for it to affect anything. So those more common ones, like a Levi's 527 or a brush popper, like, yeah, there is maybe a little bit of give and take with sharing that information, but for most of it, you still got to go out and find it, and it's hard to find the good stuff even now, whether we say it or not. Bill's Bias says, 2 of my favorite creators in one spot. Thank you both for the awesome content. Thanks for being here. Wolfman's Goodies, we got another super chat. I have a what sold channel. So that's how
So do
you
I.
share what sells in your business. Oh, is that what we do? Is that what we're called? A what sold channel?
Basically, yeah,
A thrift haul what sold channel.
pretty much.
I'll have to check out your channel. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for the super chat. I appreciate it. I've seen you in the comments and in the chat before, so thanks for being here. You deserve good karma from Gabriel for all that you
Thank
share. Does having a high quantity store nullify the significance of focusing on 80% sell through rate items? I'll jump into that. I think that doesn't really matter what scale you're doing. The higher your sell through rate is at any scale, the better your business is going to be. Finding hundreds and hundreds of high sell through rate items is just going to be extremely difficult. So you're either going to have to pay way more or spend more time finding those items. But if you have an 80% sell through rate, say across your store, and you do 100 items a month or you do 200 items a month, like if your sell through rate goes down to 40%, you're doing the same thing with way more work. So I would just say as you scale, you can't really sacrifice sell through rate, or you're not going to see the returns for your extra efforts.
Does having a high quantity store nullify the significance? No. If you have a high quantity store, if you're listing 60 items a day, as long as everything's equal and they're all high sell through rate, you should sell double. Like if you go from 30 to 60 or 60 to 120. But if you, like you just said, if you double the amount of items but you cut the sell through, then that's where it nullifies. So you just want to keep all the quality consistent.
All right, really quick, Razor wants to hear our Grail stories. I'm guessing that we've found. I've like paid up for really good items and have sold really good items, and I've had like certain even like items I bought like retail or online arbitrage where I bought like tons of the same item and made a killing on it. But as far as like a Grail, I found a liquid blue all over print dragon t-shirt on the racks for $2.99, and that was back when vintage was crazy, and it sold for $3.50 in like a day. So that's probably my best like thrift, like quick flip or like grail item.
My best grail item would be I bought a pair of Levi's and for $5 when I was on vacation, and they were like 70s red line salvage ones, and they sold for around like 400. That's as far as clothing, that would be like my best and my most favorite item. Because I think a grail has to be something you're kind of into, like it's like the holy grail, you know. But that would be and that's what got me into Levi's pretty much when I found that.
Dope. Well, I think we finally caught up. So I just have some questions for you because I've been watching your business for a couple years now, and I'm just curious. We've never really chatted other than a little bit here and there getting this set up. Um, we kind of talked about how you like what you did when you first started on eBay, but oh no, we did talk about that because your brother kind of introduced you to flipping, and then you kind of
Yeah, yeah.
rolled into it from there. So as far as listing your 30-ish items per week, a rough amount of time that you think that it takes you to do that?
Per day or like
Per day
I
or per week?
in terms of hours per day, it varies so much because you can walk into a thrift store and find 20 items in 5 minutes. And then like the other day, I barely got 30 items and I went to 10 thrift stores and it took 6 hours to do that. So, and I don't like time myself and every week is different. I'm very successful for how inconsistent I am and how I'm not really one of those people that's like into the processes. I do a lot of good processes, but and some days, like doing my listings can take me, I can do 30 in 1 hour. And then 2 days later, it'll take me 3.5 hours. And I'm like, how is that even? I don't understand. And I'm the same person, but something in my brain is different. So I'm always experimenting, mixing things around in a day because I'll be like, oh my God, I did my listing so great at 9 p.m. It went so fast. And then I'll try it again 2 days later. It's I couldn't tell you the hours, but I work a lot. I pretty much work from the time I wake up in the morning, which is not really the morning, it's like 11. But my girlfriend works like a regular job. So basically I try to be home around 5. So like I try to get as much work as I can do, leave a little bit of space for thrifting, like enough like 3 to 5 hours, and then I want to be home by around 5. So she's not seeing me working all the time. So it looks like I'm just normal and balanced. So like when she gets home, I'm just like chilling on the couch. And then obviously sometimes it overlap and I'll be like, I actually have to go. Sorry, I have to leave. I have to go do my photos. But usually I'll try to do it where it's like, yeah, I'm just chilling at home. And then when she goes to bed, I'm back to work. Like working for yourself, you can end up working way more. So it's like good to live with someone who can help balance me. Because if I didn't have her here, I would work from the time I woke up in the morning till the time I went to bed every day and never take a day
Yep.
off.
I can relate to that. When I first started, like I was doing it on top of two other part-time jobs that I was doing. So it was like I'm cramming it in like when I first started, I didn't have like a label printer. I didn't have anything. Like the first time I made a sale, I woke up at 5 a.m. so that I could get to Office Depot when they opened, and then I like sprinted to the back like printer area and then like emailed my label to their little printer and printed it, and then I taped it onto the box in the car. And this was all like before I had to be at work at 8 o'clock.
Dang.
And you're just kind of cramming all that stuff in. And then when I eventually quit one of the part-time jobs, and then I eventually went full-time. And at first, like it was so easy to just wake up and work until I went to bed. First of all, it's fun, especially when you're first starting, and every single thing you do makes your numbers jump up so fast. Like
Yeah.
I've already had crazy numbers. Now I'm fighting to keep my numbers the same. At first though, when you make a sale and it's like, oh, I made $100 sale, my 90-day total went up $100. And then it's like, oh, I did $2,000 this month, and your 90-day total goes up by $2,000. And like it's so directly correlated to the numbers at the beginning that it's so like motivating and addicting to just like work and work and work and do this and flip that and stay on top of it. But now that like I've been in the business for a while, like my goal has been to work as a little as possible without, like totally letting things drop off. Especially, once I had a kid, it's like, my wife needs my support. Like when I'm done working, like, I want her to be able to make dinner without like also holding a baby and like, juggling all these responsibilities. Like I want to be there for her, be there for my kids. So like it's more important than ever for me to work as little as possible. And like I look at other people's numbers that do a lot more work than me, and it's like, man, I really don't know how I could do much more because realistically I do 30 items every day. I just only work 5 days a week.
Mhm.
And so it's like, where can I get that extra time? And that kind of goes back to like, how far can you really take this as a solo thing? Because I've been like stuck. Should I hire somebody to make that like next jump? But I feel like if I do that, you kind of almost have to go really hard at that and way past that. Because if I'm just paying somebody to pay for the employee or just making enough more to pay for the employee, it's not really getting me ahead, like working me towards any sort of goal. So it's like, but do I want to take the endeavor of making like a big operation, like dramatically increasing? And that's where I kind of go back and forth. And I've already said it, a bunch of times in this live, but I think like where you're at, where you can do 30 items a day just by yourself, I think that's a really nice sweet spot because you're making really good money for the amount of effort that you're putting in. But if you were to scale, you would have to go crazy. Like you'd have to go way more for it to pay off once you include starting to have to pay somebody and all that kind of thing. So, what are your kind of thoughts on where you're at in your business currently? And like, if you were to scale, what would kind of be your route to do that? Or are you planning to scale? Or just kind of give me some insight into that aspect of your business.
I'm not planning to scale. I think I'd like to stay at 30 items for as long as I possibly can. It's like the perfect number. And technically don't do 30 items a day because I do end up taking, for like the last 6 months, I've always taken at least like a day off every week. It used to be 30 items a day every day, but I was buying way worse items. So I've been able to just take an extra day off and make more money by getting better items. But in terms of scaling how I want my business to go, I've thought about hiring someone. It's just like it's a lot of responsibility because now they're kinda depending on me and, if I don't feel like working that day, I gotta have work for them. It's an automatic expense that just it would be really cool if I could just, go to my little warehouse or whatever, and then I'd have my little people working, and I just walk around, "Hey, how's it going? Actually, you need to take your photos like this. Let's straighten that out," and I would love that, but and I could actually now that I'm saying it, I could really envision it for myself, like, being a boss, but it seems like a lot of stress, and it seems like I'm trying to make this as chill as possible, you know, where I can take a vacation or whatever. So, for scaling, I'm just trying to do more research, basically, and do the same amount of items.
Yeah, so you've already figured out how to do 30 items, ish per day, and you're able to do that at a relatively comfortable pace. And so how you're scaling is I'm going to keep increasing my knowledge so it's easier to find the 30 items, and I'm also finding a better 30 items every day.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that okay? That's awesome. I think that's a great way to do it. And especially if you want to kind of stay as that solo operation, because like you said, like if you were to hire somebody, you really have to go like way beyond 30 items to make it worthwhile to be paying other people to do it, or else like you're just taking on that additional stress for basically no reason.
Yeah, and then, like, I'm only made, like, 75 grand last year net. I'd automatically be cutting it in half, cause like, a fair wage for someone per year is, like, what, 30? At least 30 for, like, an entry level job. That's, like, low now. So, I would just be cutting it in half, and now they're just my partner, and I'm dealing with double the stress. I mean, I understand exactly how like Kaylee Elaine, she just keeps like adding people slowly. She's like building like a little empire over there. And you like see the numbers and you're like, oh, she's probably not making as much money as me like 2 years ago, whatever, like just me being by myself. But then you see like her numbers keep going up more exponentially because she has more help. And it's oh, like it's enticing, but it's you have to have the personality for dealing with people every day. And I'm like the kind of person where like I like people to like me. So like it's hard for me to, lay down the law. Like when I was my little shift leader at my barbecue place, um, people be walking all over me. I'm not a good boss. I'm just not a good boss. In my mind, yeah, I could see like me, Jeff Bezos or whatever, but in reality, I've had the experience where I'm not good at it.
Yeah, I think that like kind of having that self-awareness is a really good tool just being self-employed. I think that I'd be like it'd be a little bit easier for me because I do have a pretty rigid structure for my schedule just so that I have routines that, I'm able to help my wife out around the house and, you know, take care of my daughter so that, my wife can get her things done and little things like that where I have to be a bit more rigid. So that like structure is already built in, but it still would be, really a big sacrifice in profits until it got going. And I think that's a good like comparison when you're talking about how Kaylee Elaine does it because I kind of follow her along loosely as well. But it does kind of take time to see those reflected in her numbers when she does like go over her, what sold for the week and how much she's selling. And so it's not immediate. If I started doubling my listings tomorrow, whether I'm paying somebody or not, it's not like I'm going to start making double the money tomorrow. And where am I going to find double the amount of items? I'm already, working really hard to find the proper amount of items for what I'm currently doing. So definitely would have, a quite a hill to climb to get to that point. What would you say is like the bottleneck in your business currently? Like what's the most difficult portion or what's
Uh,
the yeah.
Finding items is 100%. Just because it just seems to get more and more competitive. Like every week, I see a new guy or gal, and it's like So I always try to like in the thrift. I'm always looking what's in their cart. All right, who are they watching on YouTube? Because I'm very observant in the thrift store. I'm spying on everyone. I don't really talk to that many people unless they say, "Hey, Umbo," but there's just so many new people. The I feel like they're the thrift stores and the people in there grabbing all the good stuff are the main bottleneck between me and like going up to like 40 or 50 listings a day.
Yeah, I think like before the last like maybe month or two, my bottleneck was I was spending so much time shipping like random shaped stuff that I was struggling to have enough time to do more listings. But then I definitely got slammed when the seasons changed at the thrift stores with finding enough items. And did I say this before we were live or while we were live? I've had to triple my amount of time sourcing
Yeah, you said
per
it at
week.
some point. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
tough.
that's my biggest bottleneck right now, and that is like something that I'm hoping gets a little bit easier. Like here in Ohio, it's still snowing today, so I haven't been able to like go outside to the flea market or do any like networking at, you know, really the flea market is a place I'd love to start networking, see if there's people that, don't even bring clothing to the flea market, but have need to get rid of it and some things like that. I know that Bo Johnson has been talking about making like a flyer for like your Facebook groups to maybe do like a little bit of a, intercepting before people take it to Plato's or donate it. So I've kind of toyed around with that idea as well. But yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what happens once. Um, I feel like it's still slightly transitioning towards that spring and summer. So I'm kind of hoping that the spring and summer items will get better as people go to get them out of their closet and it doesn't fit anymore. Like I said, it's still snowing here. So I'm sure like the donations for spring and summer items are still way down because nobody's gone into their closet for that kind of stuff. in my area yet. So
Yeah,
I'm
it's
kind
the
of curious as to what
transition.
happens.
The transition times are the worst times because the thrift stores, they don't know what they're doing, and then you're trying to like figure out what's good for this next season. But usually summer's like people talk about summer slowdown. It's usually my best season. So it's just the problem is like the thrift prices here, like the shorts are $15 at the Savers, and most shorts like you can a good pair of shorts is like $25 is a really good pair of shorts. 35 for a really good pair. A solid pair, 25, and like paying 15 for that is so tough. And it just seems like they're not putting them out at the rate that they should be because they're still like in the winter mindset or something. I don't know. But it's the
Yeah.
transitions. And I had the same thing going into winter where it was like this transition period where I had to switch and then the thrift stores were switching. It'll get better. It's no big deal.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm very curious about, and this is something that I don't know if it was like subconsciously or something you explicitly said in one of your videos, but I kind of curious as to your approach on sending and accepting offers on eBay.
Well, I was doing because I was doing like a 30, no, not a 30%, a 20% off coupon for a while because like Tech and Sports said that's what you got to do. So I was doing that. And I mean, my sales are phenomenal during that whole time, but my average ASP was pretty low. It was like, it like never really got above like $24 until last year where it went up to $28. And that's including shipping. So I was selling really cheap stuff, but I was selling it super fast. And but I was selling really good stuff for cheap because I've always been a sell-through rate guy. So I had like him telling me because it's hard not to listen to him because he's like the number one seller on eBay. So he's telling me, you know, you got to sell it cheap, you got to sell it fast, all this stuff. But I'm also a sell-through rate guy, and I know he's like a sell-through rate guy, but a lot of the stuff he sells isn't honestly that great of a sell-through rate. And a lot of stuff that people that really religiously follow him, the stuff they're selling isn't that great of a sell-through rate. So when you combine those, you get really, really fast sales sell-through rate with like low competitive pricing, but you don't need to be selling your stuff that cheap. And I didn't realize that until my girlfriend started her eBay, and she's super stingy. She wants every dollar for everything. She doesn't want to promote anything. She wants it to sell the same day. She's like, she's like so picky. If it gets returned, she's like, I'm gonna quit. I'm done. I'm like, okay, relax. It's okay. I'll give you money. Just don't quit. Because I just, um, although like she just got a return for some Lululemon pants. I was like, I'll give you $12. I'll buy them off you. It's cool. Anyways, what was I talking about? I was saying she was getting all the money for everything. Her ASP is like $40. Like she doesn't sell that many items, but she sells pretty much the same stuff I do with like a lot more girl stuff in there. And I'm seeing her sell stuff for like $15 more than I'm selling it for. And I seen that, I was like, okay, the coupon's gone right off the bat because I was doing 20% coupon. And then on top of that, sending out 25 to 30% off offers on everything. And like, I'm listening to Tech and Sports every day. I'm in the group. I'm like, you have to do this. If you don't do this, you're an idiot. You have to do this. Like, I don't know why, but like, it's really easy to get people in your head where you, because it's easier to just listen to someone than think for yourself. So once I saw my girlfriend doing that, I started bumping prices and I cut the coupon. I started just I send out 15% off offer on everything. I just do it on my computer. Like I select everything, do 15% off. If the offer seems somewhat reasonable, I'll still accept 30% off offers, but I'm not sending them out because how eBay does is as soon as you get a view or whatever, they say you can send an offer. And I'd be sending them 30%, 25% the second it came. Whereas like they might have bought it full price. So now I get way more full price sales than I ever got before. Um, and I just my margins have skyrocketed because I'm not just automatically taking 20% off of everything. But I gotta say, like, if you have a bunch of junk in your store, you have to do those things. It's essential. You have to. But if you are just getting like really good stuff and pretty much holding yourself to a super high standard with what you buy, then you don't have to do all that. You can pretty much do whatever you want on eBay. You don't have to promote. You don't have to do anything. You can price at whatever price you want. I make up prices. I pull them out of my head nowadays. I just do whatever. I do the research in the store and I'm like, it's good. If it's good, I can do whatever I want. If it's got a 200% sell-through rate and you price it for $200, somebody will still send you a fair offer, even if it's $100 more because they're like, okay. You just have to find the best items and you can do whatever you want after that. in my opinion.
That's your final advice. If you find good enough items, do whatever you want.
Pretty much,
Well,
yeah.
you're doing that and that's working. So I really, I can't knock that. Yeah, I'm kind of currently going through like a little bit of like just trying to double check myself on what my thought processes are. And kind of one of the things that I took away from one of your videos a long time ago is you said the more that you spend on an item, the quicker you want to sell it, not the more you want to sell the item for. And that was one thing that like really jumped out to me because I think very basic logic is I paid up $20 for this item. I need to get the most possible. But the way that you spun that was I spent $20 on that. That's taking up like 3 or 4 or 5 items worth of inventory costs for my business. I want to get my money back as quickly as possible because I'm used up so much of my buy costs. So say it's a $50 item. If I could get 40 today, that's better than holding out and getting the 50 in, let's say, 4 months from now, because I'm also getting back my buy costs as well as my profit. And I just
I
thought that was
agree.
like a really interesting concept when I heard that.
I agree with what I said, but there's a problem when you have too much money. I'm not rich or anything, but like too much this money that's just sitting here. Like I agree with that, especially if you're growing, because you need to keep the cash flow going. But at a certain point, you don't need to sell it today. And getting the extra $10 is actually going to save you a lot of work. So, because I'm kind of just trying to stay flat right now. I'm not trying to grow. And at that point, I only had like 1,000 items or whatever in my store. I'm trying to get up to like 2,500. So I'm trying to get it back as quickly as possible. So what I didn't know at the time was that not everyone has to sell it immediately. Like for me, that was true. And it worked really well having a high turnover store. And it works especially well if your items aren't like great. And most people's items aren't great. Like that's the reality of it. It takes like I've been doing this like 5 years and I've done it every day. And I just magically good things just appear in front of you the longer you do it. You know? And for those things that I work really hard on finding and I look for them all week long, now I'll wait for all the money. And I think in that a similar video where I was like, sell the thing was like sell cheap on the thumbnail. Like my business has changed a lot. It was like the thumbnail was like sell it cheap now or something like that. And I agree with a lot of what I said, especially about like aged inventory. Like I have stuff in my store for $2 right now. I go all the way down to 80% off because you have to keep it turning over because I believe that once a certain amount of people have seen it and not purchased it, it doesn't matter how cheap it gets, eBay doesn't show it anymore. That's what I've experienced. And some people will say you need to delist, relist, and all this, but personally, I just don't put the effort and time into that. I'd rather just go to the thrift and find better stuff. So my old inventory, once it's been 3 months, it's like, okay, I guess I was wrong about that. I need to get rid of it, and I don't care how cheap it goes. But for the most part, especially with doing this YouTube channel, it keeps you honest with yourself because if I'm gonna go home and show everyone these items I got, I'm showing like 2,000 people saying this is good. I have to double check in the store because I don't want to be wrong and be like, oh, I think this is good because I thought it was cute and this should be pretty good, you know. I want to be like, okay, this is the sell-through rate on this because I don't want someone calling me out in the comments being like, no, those actually suck, you know, but you're wrong. So that's actually helped my business, like sharing what's good because you constantly have to be finding new good things to show everyone. And you have to double check yourself. So I'd recommend everyone do YouTube, even if nobody watches, just because it helps you stay focused on the better items. I'm trailing off. I could talk forever about nonsense.
No, you're fine. I think that's one of the reasons why people do really like your channel. And I will say like the people that are fans of you and fans of your channel are like diehard fans. And I think it's the people that do appreciate that extra mile. And you are hard on yourself of what you share. I've heard you say, I said these were good in another video and they're actually bad. And you're honest with yourself and with the viewers about what's actually good and what's actually bad. And there's a lot of fluff out there, of course. And I appreciate your honesty with it. And as far as accepting offers, I think exactly how you mentioned it is a great kind of landscape for people to kind of choose from. There's over here where you're growing your business and you have to keep your sell through as high as possible, or your business kind of peters out because you don't have the cash flow to keep buying the good items, even if you were to find them. And then there's over here where you're just trying to maintain and you're not having a problem affording the 30 items, and you're not having a problem finding good 30 good items. And so they're going to sell for what they, what you have them listed for, or for a fair market price. And you don't have to undercut the market to sell those quickly. One thing that I would say is like a little nuance to that. And this is kind of where I'm making those adjustments with my offer strategy. I do 10% off offers in bulk, kind of like you were saying. I just go in, I click, I send 10%, and I don't even look at the items, because I know if I do, I'm be like, that's too cheap, or that's not even a discount. Why would I even send that? And I'll kind of nitpick myself. So I just go in, I send 10% off offers. But for me, when it comes to accepting offers, I genuinely look at the item and I say, is this a good item or is this not a good item? And I think that's where people kind of miss the offer thing, where they say, I'm only going to accept this percent off offer, or that's too cheap for this item. And kind of what you were saying, when people look at your item and they're interested and they send an offer and don't buy it, you just move down one spot in the search, or 5 spots, or 5 pages if it's a Polo Ralph Lauren polo, because there's millions of them available and only so many of them sell. And so when you have that item, when you go to list it, you're double checking the sell through rate. So I buy a lot of stuff that I'll be honest, I don't check the sell through rate because I've looked at it before, but those trends change. So when I go to list it, I'm looking at the sell through rate again because I type it in my search. I'm already right there. I might as well look at the sell through rate and see how is this going to affect my pricing. If this is actually, this is only a 50% sell through rate item, I thought this was good, and somebody sends me an offer, it might be a 40% off offer, but I'm still making $8 to $12 on it, and I know it's a bad item, and I'm going to sell it in 2 days instead of holding it for 6 months. That's so valuable to my business to accept that offer, because I'm probably it's going to hit my markdown sale after 3 months anyway. The price is going to start coming down. It's going to get buried in search unless somebody's looking, like typing in basically my exact title. Like Untuck It shirt would be a good example. I sold one recently and I accepted an offer of like $15 plus shipping or something. And it's like, yeah, that's not a profit margin that I'm proud of when I go into the thrift store and buy that for $5. I'm not loving selling that for $15 plus shipping. But I got that offer in one day, and when I looked up the sell through rate, it was horrible. So if I'm taking a bad item and making a profitable sale in one day, that's a huge win for my business compared to the alternative. So do you have any thoughts on that? I don't know. It's just like a little thing I've been thinking of recently.
Yeah, I agree. I had the same experience with Untuck It the other day, but I was surprised how fast it sold, even though the sell-through rate was so low. I had listed an Untuck It shirt, but I did, factor stack it or whatever. It was like flannel or whatever, and someone sent me a $14 offer, and I paid probably $7 for it. So it's like not that profitable, but the chance that it doesn't sell is so high. It's you kind of just have to take it. So like a lot of the research I do, like if I know like okay, I think it's time I do a thrift haul, I'm looking at every single item up in the thrift store so that I'm not lying to anyone. But a lot of times I'll just buy based on memory or what I think is good. And like you said, while I'm listing it, I'll look at the sell through rate in my own store because sometimes my sell through rate will be 200% or on something, and in reality it's like 50%. And I care more about what my own sell through rate is than what the market is because that's reality for me. But if the sell-through rate's total junk, I'm gonna list it so cheap. I'm gonna just try to get rid of it immediately because your best chance to sell an item is like 30 seconds after listing it. So if you can have the cheapest one immediately and just get it gone, because you have the because there's all the other bumps you do with your promoted listing, and then there's like a timer where you just start moving down, and but you get that extra little newly listed bump, and that's the best time to sell something. So if you have a bad item or anything with flaws, I don't try to like, well, almost everything I have has flaws, but if it's like a terrible flaw, I'm listing it so cheap, even lower than what I paid for it, because that's the only chance it's going to sell is if it's today. Because once it's been 6 months, I did all this work for nothing, and I can't even get $1 back for it.
Yep, I agree. I agree completely. And I think that's one thing that, like, I have a roughly 100% sell through rate in my store, but like that includes having the knowledge to sell that Untuck It shirt for $15 instead of leaving it listed for $24 for 6 months.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things where it comes down to, in my store, that's going to sell faster than in somebody's store that's not willing to accept that offer or send an offer, or prices theirs at $30 when Untuckits used to sell for $30 2.5 years ago. It'll never sell for $30 anymore, unless you have something unique. So yeah, it's good
Agreed.
insight, and I've learned some of those tactics from you, and then I made my own flavor on it. But then most recently, like, I really have been way more open to counter offering, whereas before I was very eager to accept offers because I'm entering that next stage in the business where I'm not very concerned about cash flow at all. I am very open to accepting offers on a bad item, but on a good item, I'm going to counter offer. And so I just recently made that change, and my sell through rate is going down slightly, like maybe 1 or 2 items per day, because those are probably the 1 or 2 offers I would have accepted, 4 months ago or whatever. But I'm going to make that money, on top of what I'm already doing once I, continue to source better items, keep listing at a higher rate. Because my store is still adjusting from upping my listings from 5 up to 18 from when I took some time off, traffic wise. So, it takes a lot of time for these changes to implement. But that's one change that I made recently, is doing more counter offers. Let's just check out some of these grails. Polly the Parrot says best thrift grail was a 60s 70s LSU baseball jersey for $2. Flipped it for 1,200.
That's
Somebody
crazy.
told you it was too low. I'm glad somebody told you it was too low.
That's crazy.
But you can't even change the price fast enough for 5 minutes.
I didn't even know jerseys could go for that much.
Yeah. Gabe says vintage 50s Aero Chevello rayon plaid flannel. That's like, sounds like a rap lyric. In my 3rd month of reselling, paid $6 and sold for $350.
What's the company?
A tip:
Is it Arrow? I gotta look that up.
Aero Chavella. I actually found a super old Aero shirt like 2 years ago that sold for really good money too. It must have been, it probably wasn't 50s because it sold for like $30, but most of it, is worth
Wow.
nothing. So
Oh, that's a good bolo, it looks like. Yeah. Because I found a lot of stuff that's older, like most like true vintage, like 60s stuff doesn't seem to sell. You look it up, there's just not a market for it on eBay. I think it's more on other platforms, Instagram and stuff, for like the really older stuff. So I'll find like really cool like 60s stuff, and it's just not worth picking it up because I don't have a place to sell it. And I've passed on Arrow stuff before, so that's crazy that it can sell for that much. So thank you for that. That's a
yeah,
good
it's a
one.
good bolo. He also says a tip is if you want to list 30, you can do 33 and build a draft bank for your crappy days.
I know. I don't have the. I'm not responsible enough to do it because what I do is I've done draft bank, and I'll be like, oh, I've got 100 drafts, and I just list them all. Or I'll be like, oh, I have 100 drafts. We're taking 3 days off.
Yeah, I'm going to do nothing for the next 3 days.
Yeah. So it's like at the end of the day, you're going to do the same amount of work no matter what. I guess for the algorithm, the idea is never take a day off. But for me, my sales stay pretty flat consistently. So I'm not really worried about that. Obviously, if you list every day, you can only sell the amount of items that you list in a year, right? So for me personally, I think it's all going to balance out.
Yeah, for me, like, I schedule my listings ahead. That's my version of a draft bank. And the reason I do that is because I don't work on Saturdays or Sundays ever. And so for me, it just makes more sense. I'm going to do the same amount of work. I might as well just have it go up every day. And then I have a number that I can hold myself accountable to. It's not really for any reason other than then I have a goal that I'm reaching. If I didn't have a goal, I would just go out and I'd just list whatever, and then I'd just be done. And then, it'd probably be like way less than what my actual goal is.
I got to try to take weekends off. That'd be cool. That'd be
You
a goal
should.
for me. So since I
At least one day.
Yeah.
Kenny says, how much room do you use for storage? I'm currently in a 12 by 12 shed building a house, and then we'll have 288. So you're doubling. 12 by 12 is 144, right? Be doubling his storage. What's your storage situation?
Mine is basically my garage. I measured it for my taxes. It was like 70 square feet or something like that. Is that right? Yeah, I think about 70 square feet. It's like 7 by 10. I don't really have
I'm
much
not the
room to
best.
expand. Like it's pretty maxed out because my girlfriend wants to park in the garage. So I sacrificed my car going in the garage. It sits in the driveway. So I would it would be unsafe for me to add a new rack. You know, so that's why I'm trying to find
Yeah, I'm
better
not.
items, move them quicker.
Yeah,
So
you got to move it quick if you don't want your store size to grow. For me, I'm not the best person to ask on how to do space efficiently. I have a really good rate at a two-car garage size storage unit, and for me, it's just nice to have that separation of not just being crammed in my workspace. So for me, it's just like my business can afford to have it there, so I just do it. But it's now that I've scaled into mostly clothing, like I'd say 90 to 95% clothing, I am not maximizing the space in any of my workspaces, but I have plenty of space to work with. So it's kind of nice to have that luxury. But if I really needed to, like if I needed more money for inventory, I could literally go down there and cancel it for the next month and move everything in here. It would definitely fit. Classy Oz is giving you some props and saying that your honesty is great. Wendy says your girlfriend's mom is the best.
yeah, she's great. We're trying to get her to move here, but she's just a free bird. She's out in Alabama, so she's cool. She's a workhorse. You take her to the thrift store, she'll go to 7 thrift stores. My girlfriend can't get through. Well, she'd be mad when she watches this, but she starts to kind of get sad after about 3 if she can't find anything. Or my girlfriend's mom, you could take her to 7, and I'll be going, nope, nope, that's junk, nope, all day long, and she just keeps trying. So she's and you get the senior discount. So I know you take your mom with you. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, my mom's a trooper. She actually will quality check the items and button my buttons and like organize my cart so that I can get through the cart, or she'll actually go and do a checkout while I'm still shopping or all that stuff. So it like really helps me when
Hmm.
I'm sourcing, like for sure. If she's not available, I do have my dad that can help me go get the senior discount. So he was with me on Thursday, and like he found a really cool vintage Levi's jacket the last time he went with me. And so I
That's
think
cool.
that like that beginner's luck got him like really excited. And then today, last time I felt so bad because like when you do this, it's like so many items are bad. Like there's one good item out of like maybe 250 items that you look through at the store. So it's like you feel bad when you're like, no, 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 this has a stains right there, you know. And it's like you feel like you're being rough on them, but it's hard work being out in the thrifts, honestly. Laura says, I've been nervous to get into selling Levi's, so I've been experimenting at the bins. If I can find them cheap, are there any models or sizes I should avoid? Why do you like selling Levi's? I'll let you take this one.
I would avoid like 5'10s, 5'11s, 5'12s. Is there even a 5'13? I don't know. But all those ones, those you want just straight leg, wide leg, and boot cut. That's a pretty safe rule for pretty much most jeans brands right now. I mean, there's exceptions like Diesel skinny jeans sell well. There's certain more like fancy European boy brands that where the skinnies still do good, but I wouldn't be scared to buy Levi's for $2. There's really not much bad that can happen there. Even if it is the 5'11, just go for it.
Depending on your business model, like I I would be picking up most Levi's at under $2 in if they
Yeah,
were in perfect condition and in
pretty
good
much
sizes.
all of them I would grab.
Even 5'11s, they make like a canvasy kind of jean that's more like a pant, but it's still like five pockets. Um,
Those newer tags sell good. They're like chinos. It's
yeah,
called
I've
like a
sold some of
double
them
X
really
chino
well.
or something, and they sell really good.
Yeah, and even the 511 cut of those, even used. I mean, it's not like a big money thing, but like if
No,
it's $2, like you're gonna make decent money on that and sell them quick. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. Like if you're buying those Levi's for $2, and when you first list them, you're gonna get eyes on them because Levi's is just such a popular brand. And if you can afford to take a $15 offer on good condition Levi's that you paid for $2, and you make a little bit on the shipping, you know, you can be making over $10, you know, for a really easy item.
there's never been a better time to be like a bins jean seller because of the shipping. with the cubic rate because you can ship pretty much any jeans for like 630 now, and it's like because before I would because you're charged a fee on your shipping rate as well, and none of that is profit. So I would highly recommend just getting into jeans basically and learn cubic shipping. I'm gonna just show them real quick. So like this is a 10 by 13 by 1 poly bag. And I've done a lot of research to make sure this is legal and how it's supposed to be done. Um, for cubic shipping, this is called a soft pack. You only have to enter the dimensions 13 by 10 by 1. It doesn't matter what you put in here as long as it's bag shaped. That's one of the stipulations. And you're not allowed to tape it over. So it has to keep the shape of a bag, which is kind of a loose rule, right? And then it has to fit in here and close nicely without tape. So what I do for no tape is I put the label on there as a piece of tape, basically. And then I've tried to morph my jean folding to make this so that it's not filling the bag, you know? And that is perfectly fine for us all to do. And you can ship pretty much anything anywhere for about $6.30 in one of these. You can fit almost anything in this except for a jacket where you bump on the labels, it says like 0.1, and then when it goes up, it says 0.2. And then for 0.2, this is like an $8 flat rate. This thing is huge. So this one I use is 15 by 18 by 1. So anything that can't fit in there, and if it doesn't look bag shaped, I'll throw it into here. And it's $8 for pretty much anything you can fit in here. And you don't have to measure how high it is. You only have to do by 1. And I've verified that from multiple sources that is how you have to do it. And I've been making at least an extra $1,000 a month profit, pure profit, not doing any extra work, not raising my shipping price, just by doing that. And for jean sellers, that's huge. So it's a great time to get into jeans.
What does it cost you to send like to what's furthest for you, like Florida? Is it 802 or something like that?
I've shipped all the way across the country. It's like low eights. It's not over like 830. It's cheaper than
Because
a
for
padded
me, the
flat rate.
furthest zone is 802. So I've still been putting them in like a regular flat rate, not a padded flat rate, but
I mean, it's
only
nice.
because I have like a million of them and it's faster shipping, but not
It
because
is.
like it's 3 cents. Who cares?
How much is a padded flat rate right now? I haven't used one
No,
in
a
2
regular
months.
flat rate.
Oh, I just do it because it takes me longer to get it in there. That's the only reason I don't do
Yeah,
it.
they're $7.99, so it's 3 cents cheaper, but I'm mostly just doing it so that
For the speed.
and I'm using it up because
Yeah.
you know.
It's a better
And
deal for the customer.
I'm experimenting with USPS picking up my items, so we'll see. But if I do that, you're supposed to have at least one priority for them to do it for free. I think that's what the rule is. I don't know if they changed that since Ground Advantage came out. But anyway, the cubic rate is really a money saver for sure. Brian says, showing items in the store on camera is stressful. Sometimes you're just going off memory. Absolutely. A lot of the stuff that I pick up, I'm not researching it in the store, especially at my stores. I have a couple big stores where like not the last month, but before this last month, I was getting anywhere from 50 to 120 items in one store. I would be there all day. I would be there all day if I looked up every item. I'd never leave. I relate to just taking days off when I have drafts doesn't work for me mentally. Yeah, if I didn't have like the weekends as like kind of off, like I could definitely see that mentality because I think like as humans, we're like, it's so easy to look forward to when we're off or give ourselves like justification to take the time off. So whether you schedule it or not, like your body kind of your person kind of craves that time off because we're meant to do a little bit more than just work all the time. Laura says, really appreciate this conversation on offers and how you think through different aspects of your business. Better than answering questions, in my opinion. Well, good questions are good questions, but I like talking about this stuff too. Oz says, I would recommend Woolrich. I don't know why it sells for me. Most of the stuff in my area is vintage. Yeah, definitely the vintage stuff and from my experience, if it's wool rich and it's made of wool, it's probably going to be good. If it's not made of wool, very hit or miss, from my perspective,
Their down stuff is good. The, like, vintage down vests, down jackets, outerwear.
for sure. Outerwear and all the like mid-level brands, you know, so it's only those are going to be the best items from every brand, most likely. Fu says, "What tax software do you use, if any?" I think you're just rolling with a spreadsheet, right?
Well, I used the spreadsheet, I got it from, like, I think her name's, like, Cheryl Miller or something, she was in the reseller group. I'm not in one of those groups anymore at the moment, but she was in there. I got it from her a couple years ago, and I just, like, I think it's like $70 and it's super helpful. And then I just use OLT, which is a free, well, it's free. It's not free anymore for me because if you make under 60,000, I think it's free, but it's pretty straightforward. And she has YouTube videos walking you through how to do all the taxes. I need to get an accountant, but uh, I'm not that responsible right now.
Yeah, I went without an accountant the last couple of years. I would just like uh, ask accountants or pay hourly to get advice, and then this year I hired someone for my 2023 taxes. I'm
Nice.
currently using QuickBooks Self-Employed, which was basically like the closest thing to GoDaddy bookkeeping, but then they shut down in like the middle of the year, which really like stunk because it was just so easy to use. So I really
GoDaddy
miss
was the
that.
best.
Yeah, it was
GoDaddy,
just
that's what
so
I
easy to
started out with.
use. It was basically like a glorified spreadsheet, but it was so user friendly and had all the numbers you actually want to see right at one click.
It
Like
imported from
now it's like
eBay.
now I gotta
Every
like dig and
transaction was already on
yeah,
there automatically. It was so awesome, and it showed you your actual profit every month just automatically. It was so cool. But they made it
yeah, I miss
free, so
that.
they went out of business. Or was it $30 a month or something like that? I don't remember. It was the best though.
I don't think it was free, but they just boofed us right in the middle of the year. Just pulled the plug. Oz says padded is like 10. I think it's 850, right?
Maybe without a discount, without top rated
Oh
or
yeah, this
something. I
that'd
don't
be like
remember.
what the buyer
Or
would pay if you
retail.
yeah, yeah.
I don't pay that for sure.
Dimensions on polymailers, yeah. So you can do it that way. Another thing that I've been doing is I've been using a little bit bigger of a polymailer and then folding the extra flap over, and then the actual size of it is 12 by 8 by 3.
I did read that that is one thing you're not supposed to do. You're supposed to have it represent, like, the actual size of the bag. So, like, taking in the bag and folding it over. Now, there's nothing on USPS that I could find, but I found this on different websites like Pirate Ship and stuff where they give their rules. But that's one thing I did read that you might not be able to do, technically.
So
So
I'm not putting it as a bag, as a soft pack. I'm putting it as a structured package
oh,
as
okay,
12
then
by 8
that
by
should be
3.
fine.
So
That
it's
should be fine.
basically the equivalent of a box that's 12 by 8
Yeah,
by 3.
yeah.
And so that's one way around it if your thing is looking too boxy or your bag is like too maxed out. Because then I'm not using the bag trick. I'm just sending a package 12 by 8 by 3, but it still qualifies for that zero point 0.1 cubic and gets you that cheaper rate. So I use these, I think it's like 15 by 12. So it's a little bit bigger. And then I put the item in sideways. Look at this visual. And then this folds over and it's roughly 12 by 8 by 3. And I send it as a package, not as a bag. And then but that still qualifies for that zero point 0.1 cubic cubic rate. Do you use eBay or Pirate Ship?
I ship on eBay. I used to do Pirate Ship for bigger stuff, but now you don't need to. It's cheaper on eBay,
Yep,
in my
there's
opinion.
no real benefit other than the user interface. And so because I was using Pirate Ship before eBay had the cubic rates, I'm just still using Pirate Ship because I have my workflow based around that process. But it's the exact same price on eBay and Pirate Ship. So doesn't really matter because cubic is just going to be cheaper 99% of the time.
I'm gonna go pee real quick. Keep talking.
Okay, I'll keep talking. I'll keep the people going. Oz says fairly new to it all. Right now I'm seeing 500 and 900 on the weekends. That's great. How do you promote more sales on weekdays? I think that kind of comes back to what we're talking about, where a lot of the things that we do end up being averages, doing consistent work over time. And so, like, it might seem like the weekends are spiked up with selling, but maybe looking at your numbers from an entire week perspective and how much that averages out to per day, and then trying to increase that number might be a more worthwhile endeavor, because there's always going to be days that are just a little bit better or a little bit worse within a week. But kind of looking at averages might help you get a better understanding of the sales going up or down. Because I don't do anything different on the weekends or the weekdays. I don't even work on the weekends. So I don't do anything to make weekday or weekend sales more. I'm just trying to get all my work done, as consistently as possible. 100% cotton shacket with no wool, sold it for 27. Padded is 874. Yeah, padded flat rate is 874.
I'm back.
Panda says, do you use cubic ground or cubic priority? It's cubic ground advantage for that cheaper price. Priority does have cubic, but it's just, it's going to be more expensive. I think you do the same thing, but on my eBay listings, I actually just have it set for standard shipping. I don't say whether it's going to be ground advantage or priority or UPS or whatever else. I just put standard, and then that allows me to just pick whatever is the cheapest way to ship.
Sometimes if it's a valuable thing, I'll just bump it up to priority though. Like if it's over $100, I'll always do priority. It's because I don't want to be sitting here with it in the mail for a long time. I want them to get it quick and be happy. If it's cheap, I'm always doing the cheapest option though.
So Oz was asking basically, like, he gets a lot of sales on the weekend, but not during the week. And I was just saying, like, looking at your week, including the weekend as like a whole, and working off like maybe a daily average sales goal might be a more worthwhile way to look at it, because there's always going to be some good days and some bad days. So that's what he's referring to here. On a weekend, I'll move a bunch, but on the week it's slightly more sluggish. It all kind of averages out. Bruno says, I learned everything I know about clothing from Big Yumbo. Thanks, brother. You changed my life.
Oh wow.
Changed his life. That's a big
That's
compliment.
pretty big. Well, I mean, like Thrift Life changed my life. I love that dude because I was selling so much crap and I didn't know about sell-through. And once I figured that out, everything just became less of a mess for me with my whole eBay. And I've increased my income by like 50% every year. So I could change someone's life. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I really appreciate the content that you've put out. I've learned a ton from you. I learned a ton from Thrift to Life as well. Like, I think those are the two channels that I've learned the most from clothing. And so, yeah, big props to you for putting out the content. Tricks Dude says, how much do you believe you should sell per day if you have 400 items?
Well, I don't know. That's like such a weird question because if they're like $400,000 items, then you only need to sell as much as you need the money, and just sell them slow and get all the money. If they're $410 items, there's I would generally 100% sell-through rate or matching what you have in your store to how many is sold over the last 90 days is like kind of like the industry standard nowadays. But like if they're really good things that you can hold on to longer and still make enough money to pay your bills, you can sell it slower and get all the money. So it's different for everybody in every situation. It's not a question you can really answer.
Yeah, that's a tough one because it really depends on what kind of items you have in your store, what your strategy is for pricing, accepting offers, all those different things. But I would say if you have 400 items in your store, I would definitely hope to be seeing at least 2, 3 sales a day, like on average. If you're not seeing that amount of sales, I would say really take a look at what's going into your store, how you have things set up, your business policies, and definitely reconsider making some changes to get to at least that point. It's going to be really hard to scale if you're not making consistent sales at 400 items, because as far as beginners go, I would say that's relatively a good amount of items. I mean, I have a lot more items than that. I'm sure Yumbo has a lot more items than that, but that's enough that you should be seeing at least somewhat consistent sales on a daily basis.
4 would be good. 4 sales a day. It's like 1% sell through.
Yumbo got me on the Levi game. Moved on from Levi to Doer jeans.
I wouldn't leave Levi's. Doers are
Yeah, just
great
do them
though.
both.
Yeah, you don't have to do only one type of jeans.
Panda says, is Thrift Life still posting? I've seen a couple videos in the last couple weeks.
He says
So yeah,
he's a digital nomad now is his thing, and he just travels the world and stuff, which is pretty cool.
yeah,
I feel like
you can do
people
it.
he hasn't been getting as many views lately just because it's not as relatable because he's like abroad. Um, he was really relatable like when he was grinding it out every day. So I feel like people have kind of fallen off a little bit, but I think when he eventually comes back, he'll pick back up and because he was like the king for a while of the men's clothing because that's relatively new on YouTube. Like before, it was all everything seller dudes, and then women did clothing, and then Thrift to Life came around, and then after him, every guy started doing men's clothing videos. So he like unlocked it. Him and
He
then
did
Daily
unlock it.
Refinement as well.
Yep, for sure. Well, we were talking a little bit before, and you said that you had some questions about my business. So if you have any of those that you haven't fired away or we haven't answered in a roundabout way, feel free to think about that. And then I'll also let the chat know we've been going for over 2 hours now. So I'm going to have to get back to work at some point. So definitely leave any questions now before we wrap this thing up. We'll be wrapping up before too long. And while you're thinking, Yumbo, I'll just say, like, as far as the title of this video, how far can you take eBay as a solo entrepreneur? I think that Yumbo is in a really good place of doing 30 items per day. I really do think that is the sweet spot. If I wanted to expand my working hours past, like 35-ish hours per week, or maybe add in working a weekday, I think that would be my goal, would be 30 items per day. But right now, I'm just trying to work on selling my items quickly and finding the best items possible at 18 items per day, because I'm not really wanting to sacrifice my weekends back at this point in my business. So that's why I've added in YouTube as a way to try to scale my business, teaching others and, making a little bit back on that, and working on other like smaller business endeavors to try to scale my income without going crazy on like being at the thrift stores 24/7 and things like that. But it is something that I'm always wrestling with, because as like, a young person, you want your income to increase. Like, we're competing against inflation. We're competing against needing to pay into our own retirement accounts, and we're competing against paying for our own health insurance. So we can't really be content just making whatever we made. Like, I made okay money last year, but at the same time, like, it's going to have to keep going up to be a sustainable lifestyle for the long haul for me and my family. So always going to be working on growing and improving. And yeah, that's my piece on staying solo as a reseller.
Yeah, just work hard and always be learning. I think that's the biggest one for me. Don't be too like, oh, I'm an expert now. Like I've got it all covered. Because I see people in the thrift looking pretty cocky, like they found something really good. They're throwing stuff in their cart, and I'm peeking in their cart, and it's a bunch of Peter Millar cotton button-ups, which aren't good if you know your stuff. But they heard someone say it on YouTube, and they're an expert now. So you gotta, if you want to stay on your own, you gotta use your brain because your brain power, I think, is infinite. You only have a certain amount of times in the day, but we can hold a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed like the other kind of clothing resellers that came into the space over the last like 6 months or so, because I like I'll be honest, I don't really enjoy that type of content other than a few channels, but for me, it's work. Like I'm doing additional research that I don't have to be physically on the computer looking at eBay to do this research. I don't take their word as, the end all be all because I still want to look at it myself. But, when I'm just taking photos at my photo station for, an hour and a half, uh, I'm going to put on a podcast. I'm going to put on some thrift hauls. I'm going to put on some what sold, because even if I learn one item per day from just absorbing some content indirectly, over the course of a month, that's 30 more items I can find over the course of the year. It's hundreds of more items that I'm going to be able to find year over year in my business. And it's also updating my knowledge on things that might not be as good anymore. Like we've both mentioned untuckets recently in videos. Like those used to be bread and butters for me. Even, when they weren't like super amazing, they still sold fast. And now it's almost an untouchable brand, profitably from my thrift prices. And so just getting those little nuggets of knowledge is just another way of doing research. And so I really recommend that for anyone, put on these, like I put on live streams, from resellers just like this and try to pick up little nuances here and there while I'm working.
I think that also, doing research through YouTube, people should try to find content for your research that isn't like directly resellers telling you what's good, because resellers are totally blind to like what's going on everywhere. We just like see an item, we see money, whatever. Like you should, if you're into, like for me, vintage Levi's, there's like tons of YouTube channels that just go into the whole history of Levi's, and that's all they talk about. They don't talk about how much they go for. They don't talk about like eBay right now. And even like these annoying, there's like so many like annoying little vintage YouTube kids, and they're so annoying, right? But if you gotta watch them and see what they're into, see what they're wearing, see what they like, or a fashion YouTube, you gotta watch that stuff too, because then you can stay ahead of the trends, and then you're seeing things, knowing what to look up in the thrifts. If you're just listening to resellers, we're like the third person down the line to figure out what's good. It's like the young kids, then it's the companies making the stuff, then it's we're just way back here. And then if you're the person
Yeah,
watching
we're
the video, you're even
reacting. We're
yeah,
reacting to what's already happening, but they're doing it like they're the first people doing it. So if you can recognize that trend before it gets to all the YouTubers talking about it, that's where you're going to find really the most profitable items. Like that was kind of you with the Levi's 527 before everyone was talking about it. Like you start sharing it, a few other people start sharing it. Like those became in style, and you saw that trend and you were able to capitalize on that market, and now it's common, everybody knows it. So what's the next thing? I think it was kind of the same thing with like the wide leg baggy jeans. Like that was kind of the next thing that happened after that, and now everyone's talking about it, so it's going to be impossible to find those items. Those prices are going to start coming down because there's going to be a huge influx of them on eBay. But there was a little sweet spot there where before people were talking about it, if you happen to find those, you were sitting on a money pile.
yeah. I could tell you now because I'm not doing it anymore. I was buying them on Poshmark for $10 a piece, just getting tons of them, and I just have them delivered here, just shipping them out every day. Just have them coming in, shipping them out, coming in, shipping out. And then I told everyone about them, and then the margin wasn't there to do that anymore. So you got to be looking. You got to be. I made thousands of dollars on the 527s over the end of last year. It was awesome.
Brian says, I'm doing the 18 a day too, and then focusing on other things to scale. I tried 30 a day and got burnt out on sourcing. That's how I feel. Like, I really think if I wanted to do much more, I could probably do 20, I'd go up slightly. But if I wanted to do much more than that and still work only 5 days a week within my, 9 to 5 hours ish, I'd probably have to start outsourcing at least one step of my process. But then that would require me to probably go up to 40 items or maybe more to be able to afford that profitably. So it's always like kind of a slippery slope, a two-edged sword. Is that what they say? Is
Double-edged
that right?
sword.
That sounded way better. Thank you. Thanks, English Lit. Bearded PokeTuber says, Fru, I left for the post office, hit a Salvation Army, came home, and still going like the Energizer bunnies. That's
Good
it.
for you.
I'm enjoying it. I mean, and I said this at the beginning, but like really, I have watched your videos for such quite a long time and learned so much from it. So, I'm just glad you're able to come on and we're able to chit chat. And it's nice to have, a coworker in the space on the reselling world and also on the YouTube world. So
Yeah, I like talking to people that do what I do. So
here to help my boy Gumbo have more viewers than K&M. That's just a
oh
really
yeah. How
funny
many did we get? I
typo.
couldn't get any of my screens to work. What was our live view count at the peak? Did we get above 50?
Uh, right now
What are
we're
we
at
at?
74 and I saw it over 80 at one point. It was
Okay, that's good.
81, I think.
That's good.
So that was
That's
pretty
good.
good. Let's see. Can I see what the
That's a
count
lot of
was on this
people.
other one?
Imagine talking to
I
80
think
people.
so.
Like it's crazy to have
Just
like
yeah.
4,000 subs, even though that doesn't sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things for like YouTube. Like I picture myself sometimes just talking to 4,000 people, and it's like that's crazy.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day. I can't remember who it was, but they were saying like if you held a seminar for like your work or your job and you had 40 people come, you'd be like, wow, this is crazy. We better order donuts. We better get the coffee
Yeah,
out. We got to do all this stuff. And if you make a video and you got 40 views on it, you'd be like, nobody watches my stuff.
yeah. 40 is a
So it's
lot. I
pretty
just try to
crazy.
imagine them.
Yeah, it's like crazy if you think about it. Like, even like, some of the videos that we post do get like maybe a couple thousand views. And it's like, if you really think about talking to a couple thousand people, like that's actually providing people a ton of value if, it's good information. So that's pretty cool. It's one of the motivating factors to keep posting. Like, if it's helping 1,000 people, it's pretty cool. He did fix it to Yumbo, not Gumbo, but I just thought that was a really funny typo.
What did I do? Did I put Gumbo as my
Oh,
name?
no, he said Gumbo.
Oh, okay, okay.
This guy. Panda says, I remember when Untuckit was really popular, went to the thrift, found 18 button ups, sold them in a week.
Yeah, you can
Yeah, that
still
would be
find a there's even more of them now. Do you know if the performance ones are still okay? I haven't looked those up. You know the ones that are like nylon and
performance short
spandex?
sleeve.
The short
Performance short
sleeve?
sleeve. I sold two of them in like a couple of days. So I don't know if maybe I thought I priced them high. I priced them at like 28 plus shipping
That
and they
is
sold.
pretty high. Oh, what
That's what
size
I
were
thought.
they? Were they big size?
It wasn't like overly big. I think one was a medium and one was a large.
Okay, maybe I'll look into those ones. Because the one I did sell, I sold quick for 14 bucks. So, I mean, they're not
Yeah, so maybe
terrible.
you discredit it.
They're not a good sell-through rate though. Across the board, they're not a good sell-through. But I mean, if that's
Well,
what
and
you
that
can
goes back
find, that's
to
what you can find.
if you look at your own store, there's going to be certain things that you can sell well. There's going to be certain keywords that you put in your titles that help your items sell. There's going to be, just little nuances that help you. Like for Levi's, I'm sure your sell through rate on certain Levi's is better than the average person because you've already what's what's past tense of dived,
Dove,
dove,
dove.
deep dove.
You've
You
dove.
already deep dove.
You already dove. Maybe Dovin.
Neither sound right. Neither
Whatever.
sound right.
One
Well, I
thing
think we've
I'll
caught up
say,
mostly on the chat.
I have one thing to say about like picking up untuckets and stuff. I would pick up untuckets. I'm not saying they're bad or anything. It's just I can go find 30 untuckets today. And if I say, okay, I'm done for the day, I got my 30. Now I'm not going to be motivated to go find all those $100 items. So like if you just kind of elevate your mindset or what you think is kind of like acceptable, then it like opens your eyes to the better things. Even if you have some rough days because you're leaving, you decided you're going to leave all the untuckets. Like that's the trick is kind of just raising your standards a little bit so you can find better stuff.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think it's also price point, and it's also knowing the market of sizes, and even like what we're talking about, the materials. Like Untuckit is a brand. Like I found a Henley shirt the other day, and this was probably like a month or so ago, and I had to look that up because I don't know what their Henley shirts sell for, what the sell through rate is. I've found their shorts, and that's a completely other category. And you have to look at those individually, especially for a brand that has really made their hay on shirts. Like sometimes those brands get so strong that other items reflect that. And sometimes people don't even know that they make shorts, so they never sell. And so there's so much nuance even within one brand. 3XLT is going to sell better than a size small. A geometric print is going to sell better than, a plain boring plaid shirt. And so, there's really still so much nuance even within those brands that finding the profitable items within every brand is one way to unlock so many more profitable items at the thrift store. Really quick, Pirates Prayer says, what do you guys promote at? He does 3%. I do 5%. I think you said you do the same. Yep. Promoted listings, return policy, shipping prices, all those things are things that you can tweak to, increase your sell-through rate. So if that's something you're struggling with, I definitely do some research and experimenting with those in your store. If you're having a great sell-through rate at 3%, don't raise it because you're just giving away money. If you're having a hard time selling items at 3%, try 4%. So those are just try to use common sense when it comes to making those little decisions for your business, because that's what's going to pay off for you, because it's not going to be the same as it is for me, because I'm sourcing completely different items. I have different offer strategies. I'm having my own return policies, my own shipping prices, all those things, just little nuances that change how things sell. Do you have any final words for the people? We've been on here for 2.5 hours, so we better get off and do some work, huh?
Yeah, I still have to ship, photo, find 30 items and list them, and then it's date night. I'll probably won't do my listings today. So, well, I don't know. We'll see. But for the people, I would just say, stay positive. Don't worry about all of the crap. Like a lot of people on YouTube be like, is this the end of eBay? All of this junk, it's all just noise, Just worry about just finding the best items. You don't really have to worry about anything else if you just find the best items. And you should try to figure out those items on your own. That's the best way to do it, rather than listen. Like, I can tell you something that's good, and then you see that, and you're like, okay, look for things that are like that, and then you find a new thing that's good on your own. So just find good items. Don't stress out about bummer things, and that's it.
Sweet, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on the channel. I did link Yumbo's channel down in the description. If for whatever reason you're here and you don't already follow or subscribe to Big Yumbo's channel, I would be really shocked. But if you don't, go down, hit the subscribe button. Definitely check out his videos. Great knowledge on the clothing category. I've learned so much from him, so really appreciate you coming on my channel. And yeah, it's been really fun. It's been nice hanging out with you, and maybe we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. We should do like some other type of creative thing like this, like with I don't know, I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Let's get creative.
It's cool though. It's
Let's
fun.
get creative. Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the next one. I don't know when my next piece of content will be coming out, but I just appreciate you all being here, and it's been really fun. So we'll see you guys. Peace out.